Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the MinnMax Show podcast. In person, in studio, live and living, as we like to say. Hello, I'm Ben Hansen. Thanks for being here. MinnMax is a place about games, friends, and getting better. I'm joined by Leo Vader.
In the stew.
In the brew stew, we have Sarah Podzorski.
Barely hanging on.
That's right. Why do you say that?
You dragged us all over Minneapolis yesterday from like 4 p.m. to 11 p.m., which doesn't seem like a long time. But when you're being, it's like we saw the greatest hits in Minneapolis between 4 p.m. and 11 p.m.
That is a luxury. You had an all-expense trip paid through the heights of Minneapolis. Everything great about the city. I think it was lovely. And we're also joined by our very special guest, Janet Garcia!
Hey, what's up? All the way from Los Angeles.
Hell yeah, in the studio. The weird thing, Leo, I don't know if you can wrap your mind around it. Janet's like a three-dimensional person in more ways than one. Like, you get to see, like, all parts of it. It's like seeing a sculpture come to life, you know?
Yeah, it's really
horrifying.
something.
Is it as scary as that sounds?
No, I think it's kind of cool. It's weird. Are you used to seeing us?
Yes and no. I think I've gotten used to, like, the shock of seeing people step outside the squares of Discord. So it felt like really chill, and I think it was helpful that we just immediately got to go into hanging out. I think a lot of times when I like have gone places for things in person, it's like, hey, what's up? Nice to meet you, either for the first time or in person. We're gonna work for like a couple hours, and then it's like, okay, we're immediately like getting to work. But I think coming through and then us hanging out, walking, drinking, eating, I'm like, oh yeah, it feels like really chill.
Sarah said it felt like work to walk around Minneapolis.
I did not say it felt like work. It just felt like, you know, when you go on like a school trip and they're like, get out of the bus, look at it, get back in the bus.
Well, I've been
get
saying
out of the
that,
bus.
as you'll see on our Instagram, like Ben, which is good. It's good content, you know, and I'm glad I don't have to record it. But Ben has like that dad on vacation energy.
The phone will just
like,
come out. Like,
you know,
what do you think?
Me and Sarah are like the sisters of the group, and it's like, take a picture together. You know, you're gonna want these memories. And I'm like, Dad, you're embarrassing us.
We're recording like a travelogue, and we're gonna cut together probably early next week. It'll be on MinnMax's YouTube channel, showing off the great trip with Janet here in Minneapolis and all that stuff. But it's like, you know, we should share the experience with the people who are paying for it, who are the Patreon supporters. So it's like, the more we can include them, the better off we'll be, and all that fun stuff. So to call it a travelogue, I don't know. It's going to be a lot of just... Leo, you remember the GDC travelogue, right?
Yeah.
Where it's more like slice of life compared to like, and this is the Spoon and Cherry in Minneapolis. So it's going to be a little raw and confusing for folks. But I think that's what people want, right?
They call them stories now. Instagram stories.
Is
it's
that
basically
right?
that.
I'll be damned. So we're filming a lot. We have a lot more to film, a lot more adventures to go on. The reason Janet's here is because everybody supporting us, which is amazing. And specifically the reason she's here is people thought, wouldn't it be funny to fly Janet all the way to Minneapolis, Minnesota from LA just so that she can play Shrek 2 on the Nintendo GameCube? And so that's what we're going to be doing tonight. This is the Trek to Shrek. If you remember us screaming about that goal in the podcast a while ago and you were confused about what we were talking about, this is it. So let's see. Thursday at 6 p.m. Central. If you're watching this or listening to this early, we're going to be streaming Shrek on Twitch. So give us a follow at MinnMax Show on Twitch, all that fun stuff. Do you say at MinnMax Show? Twitch.tv/MinnMax Show would be the way to go. Sure. But then also the archive will be up on YouTube. So yeah, we're going to play Shrek 2, which Sarah insists is a good game.
It is a very fun game.
Okay.
It's a very fun couch co-op, multiplayer game. Everybody gets a different character.
Oh, I didn't realize it was multiplayer.
Yep.
Oh, really?
Buckle in,
Oh,
Janet.
man. We're going to be those characters. It's going to be sweet.
I watched Shrek 1 and 2 in preparation for...
And when it just made.
I thought Shrek 1 still hot fire. If you haven't watched Shrek 1 in a while, watch it. I promise it's even funnier than you remember, and you do remember it being funny. Shrek 2, honestly, like, I've gone back and forth. Like, there have been times where I'm like, this is kind of low-key underrated, and it is a good movie, but it's definitely not nearly as good as Shrek 1. Also, now that I'm, like, almost 30, I'm like... Shrek's kind of a jerk in Shrek 2. Like, he's got a lot of the toxicity comes out in Shrek 2.
And
I was like, this man's trash.
Well, like Shrek 1, he gets everything that he wants, and there's nowhere for him to go in life.
Well, in Shrek 1, he starts out as toxic, right?
Right.
He starts off as, like, you know, withdrawn, toxic, and, like, crotchety.
Yeah.
And then he goes on this adventure, and, you know, some character development happens.
Right,
He finds true love. Spoilers.
Right.
Hallelujah plays. I recall the hits, yeah.
Shrek 2 was not as funny as I remembered watching it in the last year, but I did get genuinely emotional at the end of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Because of the little dragon babies, or is that in the first one?
Because of the song they play at the end?
The first
Live in the
one.
Vida Loca.
The music, I like the music in Shrek 2. Like, Shrek was my exposure to a lot of music, I'm gonna say, like older music. So like Shrek and Shrek 2 were like, that's how I learned a lot of songs.
I love that Chasing Crows song that they play in Shrek 2.
This seems pretty good. So yeah, Sarah or Janet's here for a bunch of content. We'll be pumping it out. It's gonna be sweet. The travelogue, we're filming the highlights, all that fun stuff. Leo, if I may take you into a journey of something that happened yesterday that was
Take me into a journey.
I'm gonna take you into a journey.
I'm scared.
Where we got in the car, because I was filming a lot of stuff, and we got in my car outside of like the Walker Sculpture Garden and stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, Sarah, you're
You
on.
did not say that.
I said, Sarah, you're on
First of
filming
all,
duty because we're gonna go to the lakes, and so you're in the back seat, so you should film us exploring the lakes.
Driving.
Absolutely said, here we go. You're on filming duty, Sarah. Here we go. We then whip a Yui, and then we hear sirens. Like, that's weird.
As one does.
Then there is a wild police chase with the cars flying past us.
Okay.
Like a guy up on the curb coming around
He's
us.
on 2 wheels doing the turn that we just turned.
There's been some dramatization of this story, but that is true. That is what generally happens.
And like I got to look in the eyes of a driver being chased by the police.
Wow.
And calm as can be. It
Yeah.
scared me how relaxed and chill this
And
guy
he was
was.
in the zone.
Yeah, he was.
He was
Yeah.
in the auto zone zone.
Right. And then they flew past and said, Sarah, did you get that on tape? And she was... I
I've been
think she was
trying
checking Instagram.
I've been trying to find it in the news.
Yeah, Sarah, who
what
was,
we saw,
who was
and I
told
still can't
to record
find
the
it.
lakes, did not record this wild car chase.
You gotta be ready to go. Anything can happen in this town. It's wild.
Yeah, we're not TMZ, and Ben reminds us that every single day.
Yeah.
He's like,
Not yet.
I definitely
we're not.
understand being caught off guard and not fully processing every possible
especially
decision to
because
make.
That was content.
it was at a higher speed than like the legal speed limit for sure. Like you could tell they were
Right.
what was going on, but it wasn't immediately completely apparent. Especially because it's like, okay, well, the police car. Oh no, they're not stopping, and then that's when it really clicks that like you're witnessing
That's
a
cool.
crime.
This is a whole thing.
I was in Wisconsin yesterday and I saw a parked police SUV that said on the side of it military police.
Oh, interesting.
Oh.
And did they seem different?
I don't know. It was empty. But it's like call 911, you know? It's a 911 thing
Right.
over there.
Weird. Yeah, it feels like something that should be in like Infamous Second Son. Some
Yeah.
experience like that. Hey, good times.
80s action movie.
That's right. Janet, it's so lovely to have you here. It's so lovely to have everybody in person. I feel bad for like making the transition into talking about games. But should we? Should we?
Sure.
Let's
Should we
just
talk
not.
about that?
Let's just not.
What do
Do
you
we
want?
think that's cool?
I don't.
Do people still like
know.
that?
I don't know. We could get a poll rolling.
This
for
trip might be
people.
the longest I haven't played games in a while. Actually, no, Shrek 2. We're playing it tonight, so
It's
that's
only
still not
been
true.
like a day, Janet.
I play a lot of games a lot of the time.
Yeah, you are a machine. We were talking about it. I think it was on air, behind your back.
We talk
slightly.
about it a lot.
Yeah.
I
I
talked
do.
about it with multiple people about
appreciate
Janet's.
that.
Yeah, that's like the one conversation we have.
Yeah.
Above and beyond.
You just have like a really comfy couch. How are you playing all these games? What's the secret?
It's a solid couch. Sometimes
Okay.
I have to add 2 pillows in the back to like sit up more. Sometimes I sit in like I still have one of those like butterfly dorm chairs that I bust out sometimes because it's secretly
the
insanely
secret.
comfortable.
Nice.
If I'm feeling really like unhinged, I'll stand in front of my TV like it's, you know, the 2000s and I'm looking at my like CRT on the top of a wardrobe, but I don't
What?
do that too often.
What? Like, is that just like if you need a boost of energy as you're on
Well,
your...
after a while you get stiff, you know, like
Yeah.
you gotta like get up and move around a little bit. But yeah, no, I just go and then I stop when it's done.
As unbelievable, which leads us to our point that you finished Saints Row,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is
Wow.
wildly impressive. I mean, how much time did you take in it?
I think it honestly wasn't as long as it seems like it might be. It felt longer than it was. I think it was only maybe 15 to 20 high like 10s at like fastest.
Really?
I did keep track of it like I'm using like the Pomodoro timers and I kept track of it there, but then I kind of lost track at a certain point and I think the math shook out to like 10 to 15 hours, but it's probably like somewhere that 15 to 20 depending.
Okay. I played about 3 hours of the new Saints Row. Sarah, you're allergic to Saints Row?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Leo, have you been playing it too?
Like 8 to 10 hours, maybe?
Oh, really? Okay. How are you feeling going into it, Leo?
I was really excited for it. It felt like the right time to get back to that era of slightly B-tier open world game.
And then you played 10 hours of it, and what do you think?
Yeah. I don't know. I was genuinely excited. I I don't feel like I'll take much joy in the dumping on it that's probably about to happen.
Why is that?
I don't know. I guess because we just interviewed the developers, and that always gives you a little bit of a, oh yeah, real people worked on this, and they've had fun with it. There's love in it, certainly. You can see that.
But what did you think of it?
It's not tickling the dopamine receptors. When I boot it up, I feel like I'm being tricked into upping the passive income portion of the game, rather than like I'm actually excited to do these activities. Like passive income stuff like that is great when what you're doing to increase it is fun in itself and it's just playing off each other, but it's a lot of chores, a lot of steal this vehicle and drive it back to your base, which wasn't even fun back in the heyday of Saints Row and certainly is not enough now.
Yeah, it's a weird one where the reviews hit and everyone was running around on fire on the internet. It's bad, everybody, moving on, it's bad. It's like, I feel like I need to recalibrate where I'm at. I think I was thinking about this, like maybe it's a weird disconnect between like Metacritic and then also like where we come from at Game Informer and like the Game Informer review scores where it's like 7 is average, where it's like I played 3 hours of Saints Row and I was like, it seems fine. At the core it's like my takeaway was this is not going to impress anybody. I don't think. And who it's for, I guess, is if you want kind of a B tier level open world crime game that would have been a pretty good game back in like 2015. If you're nostalgic for like that era, but then also you're not precious about dildo bats not being in the game or whatever, it's like it's a weird sliver that maybe they can still hit. But Janet, as somebody who played it and finished this sucker, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I went into it kind of neutral. Like I hadn't played Saints Row before, and I kind of only know it as GTA clone. It's like GTA but not as good. Or on the positive end, it's like GTA but with its own like wacky twist. I feel like is kind of how people discuss the franchise. And I went into it like, okay, let's see what it's about. And it was funny because even before I went into it, I'm like getting like light spoilers just from like you guys, people like kind of funny who are like, oh yeah, like I started playing it, and I'm like, no spoilers that it's bad. Like I told, like even from talking to you, like I could tell that you weren't hot on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm gonna go in anyway. And I'm like, you know what? It's not good, but I'm having fun. Like I started out really enjoying my time with like the character customization. I think is really, really strong. Again, you can debate on if you like how it looks, but I think the amount of details they have, I completely was able to make myself, which is scary, very uncanny valley character.
It's also one that they have like 6 different character voices. I know it's a Saints Row staple and all that stuff, but still like for this day and age to like have 6 protagonist options, like that is so much.
And you can change all of that at any time too. So like I thought that was really cool. I'm a big fan of shopping in games. I'm like out there, I'm getting the face paint, I'm wearing dumb boots, I'm hanging out, I'm hitting the radio stations. They have like a banda music station that I was listening to a bunch. So I was like pretty in on it, even though it wasn't like, amazing or anything. And it's one of those things where like obviously, people always ask about, oh, it doesn't have to be amazing to be fun. Like, I still am having fun. Like, you can have, anyone can have fun with whatever. Like, I'm not here to police that for people. For me, my experience was that it's basic, but I'm having fun.
Right.
And then it did shift to like, oh, this game's breaking me because it is so buggy. And also there's a lot of design choices that I think impede the bit of enjoyment that I was having. So by that mid to end point, it really was a struggle just to get through it because the repetition did start to wear on. The things became frustrating, weird design stuff, weird bug stuff, trying to figure out where I should be working on the businesses, which I'm sure we'll talk about next, on like what quest lines to do. And like some of them really gelled with me and some of them really didn't, to the point where I'm like, I spent an hour trying to do this and I'm not making progress. I'm going to just switch to something else. So so I was really soured by the end, which is also why I liked finishing it. Like people always ask, why do you finish it if you're not having fun with it? Sometimes I will give up on a game, but especially for like the sake of content, I like seeing it through because sometimes like you get a totally different take. Like if I stopped 3 hours in, I would be super like pretty more positive on it than everyone else here. But I didn't, and now I feel like a more complete understanding. On the inverse, like Dying Light 2, like I really like that game, and I think that's like a much better like B tier option. But I was super hot on it, and then like the last few missions and the ending, I was like, this is so bad that this brought it from great to good for me, which like not a big differential, but I was glad that I like could see all of those pieces and how it shaped out. So yeah. Yeah,
the bugginess, like in the early sections. First of all, we should just say it's cross-gen game experience here. It's wild to think of this thing running on like a launch PS4. I'd like to see it to see what it looks like. I guess I haven't looked up that comparison stuff yet.
I believe it can happen.
Well, that's the thing. Is like visually, it's not the prettiest. Like we talked about it on Party Chat, our Patreon exclusive podcast with like Jeffem and Kyle and Jacob Geller. They were all on there talking about it, and they're all roughly in the same camp. Maybe Jacob's like the coolest on it overall, but like it was in one of the opening cutscenes where just like a cat jumped on a table. That was my first shock of like, oh boy, after like just finishing Stray, it's like, okay.
Why do you hate cats?
What's that?
Why do you hate cats?
I just hate cats that look, very launch PS4
If my cat looked like that, I would hate it. Yeah. But totally, the graphics like that are not a deal breaker. Like a B-tier open world game, that's what you're gonna get. And if the gameplay was there, I would have zero problem with it. But as like a systems guy, this game is kind of like just nails on a chalkboard to me. As far as how many no's it gives you. There's this mechanic of calling your friends, which is classic, and you beat your friends' missions, and it says now they get a new gun, now they'll have more health, which is a fun idea of increasing your bond with these characters. I don't hate the characters either. Like, I thought the first few hours of the story have been pretty interesting, but you call your friend, and you're like, oh, I'll do this wanted mission, this open world mission from my phone, and you start it, and your friend just leaves. Immediately, automatically. Like, you're just supposed to call your friend to shoot random people in the street?
Weird.
It's like disabled from all content. And plus, the radio app on your phone is one, you can't even like shuffle play songs. You just play the songs in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
And that also turns off automatically when content starts. You'll do the like wingsuit mission, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll pick some songs to listen to while I do this to make it more fun. And then it cuts off, and instead the mission is just silent. There's no music.
I've also
in the
had it
mission at
auto
all.
like cut on. Like I've had like weird, like I stopped using it because I would have like when they introduced it, I'm like, oh, this is such a smart idea. You can make like a custom playlist and play that, but it would like you hit pause and it doesn't pause, and then it did pause, but then I like go to a cutscene and now it's like unpaused, and I'm like, I didn't save for this to play at the right. Like I'm not going to use this anymore.
Right.
Yeah, and like Jacob Geller pointed it out in Party Chat, but like the audio mix is so weird, and especially in the beginning is where it really picks up, where like it starts in media res and you're like at a club and it's like, why is everything so quiet except for the voices? I went and checked, like, is it a weird thing where it's set on headphones and I'm playing through speakers, or what is happening here? And the subtitles are automatic, but like they're just, the timing is just completely off, and it's just broken on these weird levels that maybe they can patch in some way. I'd imagine they're going to patch the hell out of this game.
I checked the settings too, which is not a good sign if I'm checking the settings in the game to make sure that I didn't accidentally do something, because there's like almost no OST in this game. Like there is licensed music, and some missions have music, but most don't. So it kind of feels like the video game equivalent of if you could just hear someone chewing, which I know some people like hearing people chew, but it's like, it's so like weirdly quiet, but then the guns are like really loud, and I'm like, I can hear like my own breath, but not in a good way. And I found that really distracting, honestly.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I'm curious to see how they're going to patch it and how they might be able to improve it. But I know like Dan Reichert ran into basically a game-breaking bug in his playthrough and stuff. And so as it goes on, it just gets buggier and buggier. That's the basic idea, Janet?
I feel like it does.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I was more constantly running into issues. And then again, it's like sometimes they're not even bugs, they're just weird design choices. Like, I was doing a mission for, like, one of the companies I had was like the waste management one, where it's like, oh, we like jankily dump like toxic waste for corporations, and I'm like, cool. And they're like, so you're gonna drive this truck full of toxic waste across almost the entire map, basically, like from a north to south perspective, and over time you'll like lose barrels, I think, if you take a certain amount of damage, but there's no indicator on like when is that gonna happen. So I was just randomly losing barrels, and I got to the end and the very last barrel just like exploded. Also, mind you, I'm not driving like recklessly at all. Like I'm pretty good at driving like in games that have kind of basic jank driving. Like I'm used to it, so I'm like, okay, I know I'm a good driver in this game, but I can't do this mission. And then I got to the end and it didn't even tell me I failed it. I just kind of looked through the menu and it said like, you get money for each barrel. So I'm like, I guess I didn't do this because I didn't have any barrels. And then I was like, I'm not going to do this as my like, you have to max out a few of the ventures, is what the businesses are called, to progress the story at a certain point. And I'm like, this is a venture that I'm just not going to engage with. I'm going to pick a different venture because I like physically can't succeed at this mission.
On the radioactive waste note, it's such a strange tone. I liked the characters because you start out broke at a job you hate, which is like instantly endears me to any character, any group of characters.
It's a freelance story, which I love freelance stories in games.
Yeah, and generally very like frustrated with all the corporations. We're going to do our own thing, but then there's stuff with the radioactive waste. Is like, this is our venture where we dispose of waste for corporations. It's like imperfect in that area. In a place where I would like to root for it, it's like not quite there.
Yeah. You mentioned the driving, Janet. Yeah, it's not going to blow you away. And I think I am fascinated by Volition as a studio, and like they've always been such a tech powerhouse going back to their early days, and like Red Faction, obviously, Red Faction 1, Red Faction Guerrilla, all that stuff. Even like the early Saints Row is like, hey, somebody's giving GTA kind of a run for their money. Look at them go, you know? And so now I feel like it's just at a point where maybe they're too committed to their own engine. And look, I'm an idiot. I don't know anything about game development, but it is this weird thing of like, they're using their own engine here, and it just feels like there's all these kind of legacy studios, legendary old studios that have just been dragging their old engines along, like, you know, Traveler's Tales with the Lego games. And eventually now they're starting fresh. I think they're using Unreal moving forward with Lego. And I feel like at a certain point for some of these old studios, it's like, it's time to let the old engine go, try something new. But that's such a huge hurdle, I'd imagine. Like, all right, hundreds of people, forget the tools you've been using for your entire run here at Volition and start something new. But
you also hear all the time about employees that are like begging to be allowed to switch to Unreal.
Right. It's kind of the old Frostbite thing with EA, you know? So not knowing anything, it's just bizarre to think of Volition's full history. And I'm rooting for that studio in such a big way, you know? So I'm a little bit disappointed that this is not exactly hitting the mark.
Yeah. Again, though, that customization is like unparalleled. Like not just the character customization, but the clothes. There's so many pieces that are aspirational to me that I want to wear. And also there's the boss browser where people upload their bosses, and you can go through it and search by tag, video game character, movie character, whatever, see one you like. And it automatically packages all that whole outfit into one purchase. So it's like $17,500 to get this boss as your boss right now, which I think is such a smart system. But on the other hand, I was browsing it for too long, and my characters turned nude, textureless, featureless, with glowing eyes. And I couldn't change anything about them until
That's what my boss looks like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a weird spot for this game, too. Like, thinking about, you know, you're excited about, hey, kind of a B-tier open world crime game, all that stuff. It's like, there's not that many out there. And it's got to be tough to develop a game like Saints Row where the obvious point of comparison is the GTA series, where now they're taking over 10 years between each entry, and the developers are working their asses off with a limitless budget. It's such a tough thing to try and enter that market. It was back then, and it's even more so now. Like, all right, your one point of comparison is an unrealistic game development scenario. Good luck, everybody.
Yeah.
So starting out, I was kind of, you know, reading the early reviews, I was like, is it just that easy GTA comparison where it seems like trash comparison? But it's nice to know that as you get deeper into it, it's like, no, it's falling apart.
And I think, like, you mentioned the idea of like 7 being average, and like for me, like my perspective on the 7 is like, you know, 7's good, and I think a lot of games frankly aren't necessarily good. But I will say one reason I think we see the 7 tossed around a lot, which I know audiences get like sick of it, they feel like, oh, you just give everything a 7.
Right.
A lot of AAA games and big studios do genuinely make games that are at least good, you know? And that doesn't mean that they're moving the needle or that they're must plays or that we're in love with them. But I think oftentimes for studios of a certain size that have an amount of history behind them are usually capable of turning out a good game. And I think that's what was so, like, I don't want to say shocking, but like this felt starkly, distinctly not good and also not okay, which is why I label it bad. It's like not okay or not good. It is bad. It is on a 10, I would give it a 5. On a 5 point, I give it a 2. And it's like, you know, I've played plenty of games that are like kind of not mind-blowing, but I do think this distinctly does take that turn to the negative where I'm like, yeah, I have like very little good to say when I'm done with the whole experience, because I've gone through so many different points of frustration throughout my journey with Saints Row.
And if it tried more, like if it tried to establish its own identity, I mean, it kind of went back to its old identity and is living off of that. If it was more ambitious in the things you were doing, I would definitely be more on board to say, like, this is a good experiment or something. But it's like, at its best, it's almost as good as Saints Row 2 from 12 years ago or whatever.
Right. It's such a tough thing, I think, to message as well. It's like, well, it's not exactly wackier or zanier, and the visuals aren't going to blow you away. So I am curious who this audience is. Like, if you play this game, I think there's going to be people out there that play this game and have a fine time and are like, what is everybody talking about? This is a fine open world game.
Co-op is probably fun.
And some people like this is like a weird, but some people like buggy games. They're like, oh, I like posted a bunch of bugs that I had, and they were like, now I want to play the game even more. And I'm like, okay, like kind of weird, but I get what people mean by that. But for me, like, they did impede my experience in terms of like, I had times where I'd have a bug and then it says mission failed, like I do the mission again. So I'm like, that's when for me it's like, quote unquote, unacceptable, because I played plenty of games that, especially you play before that day one patch, like there were times I fell through the world in Horizon Forbidden West, but the reason that didn't like decrease my opinion on the game is because that was very few and far between, and they didn't overall like impede my experience. I think with this game though too, to like toss out a few more like compliments to it, I see like parts where it had potential. Like I don't know if you did this quest or because I don't think, Ben, you got to the point where you'd have it, but I had the like, I think the business is called like Eureka Inventions or something. And that was like, those ventures were awesome because they were testing new technology. And then afterwards you got those weapons. Mm-hmm. But it's totally optional and totally missable, and also really near the end of the game. But it was stuff like you'd get this football essentially that you could throw. It clings to enemies and then it flings them in the air. You got a freaking shield that you could bring up with like your special ability points, and then you could shoot through walls with it. And I'm like, why is this on the final hour of the game? Like, this is way cooler than a lot of the stuff that has happened before.
There's also the LARPing mission where you get the LARP gun, which is like, here's this game that everybody in the city is playing, and if you shoot them with this pretend gun, they'll do this special set of animations where they like pretend to fall down and pretend to die. That's a cute idea, and I guess that's what I'm talking about when you can see the love in it, but it's just feels too rushed.
I think
or
the
whatever.
LARP thing went too long too. Like, you were LARPing for a long time. The end of that quest line though was genuinely really amusing. Like, again, it wasn't an all bad experience, but I think there were too many frustrating design moments where I'm like, yeah, it does dip below for me.
Right. Sarah.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Do you think you're gonna play Saints Row?
That's the thing. It's like, would you like to play this game that like no one is telling you to play?
Yeah.
Nope.
Well,
I'm good.
On a maybe more exciting front, we watched the big.
I was just wondering what you're gonna say there. What could be more exciting?
It's very funny. It's like, it's very funny to record a podcast in person. Just have your face like, you always give quizzical looks whenever I try to make a segue or something, but like to have it a foot away from my face as you're like looking at me like, where are you going with this, you idiot? It's a very fun vibe. Maybe a more exciting thing is the games that are coming up that were shown during Gamescom. For the Gamescom Opening Night Live, which we recorded a big reaction stream to. Like butter on bread.
And it was so all 2 hours.
React
so excited
to it right now.
Yeah.
What is your reaction?
Another 2 hours.
Yep, 2 hours of being wowed. What stood out to you? If you had to summarize what was shown off. So this is the big German convention, the biggest gaming convention in all of Europe has happened. And Jeff Keighley went over there and he said, hey, here's the big kickoff event, which he's done for the last couple of years. I think 2019 was the last one in person. He was saying all that fun stuff. But 2 hours, game reveals, Jeff Keighley bonanza, bada bing, bada boom.
There were awards for things.
Confusing.
Most anticipated games. I was just surprised that there were so many games shown off.
Right.
And it felt like by hour 2, I didn't remember what happened in the first 10 minutes. I could not tell you.
It's a lot of sci-fi. It's a lot of desert.
Where are
it's
they
a lot
getting
of, like,
all of these
stuff.
space games? Is there just like a hole in the wall somewhere where they're like, here's
they're in the
a space
pocket
game.
of big space, you know?
Is it cheap to make space games?
There's some
Is that easy to render? Like,
open area.
Space is the new zombie apocalypse.
it really feels like it is.
Interesting.
There's something, I don't know if
Now
it's
put
like,
them together and we really got something.
do you think it's a result of like culturally, I don't know, we're more interested in space?
Because the Earth is burning?
Well, sure. I mean, you could connect it to that of like, SpaceX,
a lot of billionaires
rockets.
on Mars right now. Just
Well, that's, I think, like part of that trend. It feels like kind of building up for like the corporate space race angle. So maybe it's more in people's minds. But it is weird. Like so many like independent studios as well are naming themselves like sci-fi names. Even like, the easy examples like Nextlander, or there's that studio from former Call of Duty developers called That's No Moon, which I guess Star Wars and all that stuff. But I feel like so many people are
Is that
claiming...
legal to name their studio that?
I don't know. It's a good question.
doesn't
I'm sure
sound
they
legal.
looked into it. It seems like an odd one. But they made it very clear during this Gamescom Opening Night Live that, quote, the heart of gaming is beating once again.
Once again.
Once
That's
again.
Right. That's right. Didn't you feel it, Leo, when it awoken?
Was that what that was?
Yeah, that's right. Okay, but no
I
game
felt really
in particular
cold
stood
for a
out to you?
I mean, Liza P came out of nowhere for me, and I just can't get over the name of it.
It's unbelievable.
Where the Winds Meet was surprisingly interesting, but I feel like when you put anything that isn't space in, surrounded by space, it caught my attention. Like, all you had to do was not put space in it.
Yeah.
And I was there.
Well, space is always in
there.
it, just further away.
Just a little further away. That's still a sci-fi game.
Just above the
Everything's
camera.
still a space game.
Yeah, Chibi Robo's a game about space.
Yeah.
Actually,
Well,
it is
it
in
was.
several different ways. Yeah. I think
Sparks.
Lies of P might have been the biggest takeaway. There's a lot of interesting stuff to unpack here. It's a game that we might have mentioned before. It's been around for a little bit now, but this, I think, was the big revealing where everybody's head turned a little bit. Like, wait a minute, do we have to pay attention now to a game called Lies of P that's coming from, what is the name of this studio? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't write it down. Oh, NeoWiz is the name of this studio, and it's a South Korean publisher. And then you see the game. Leo, have you seen this?
No. I think you're making it up.
It's called Lies of P. It's coming
giving
in
you my
2023. Here's the thing. Imagine Bloodborne. It's very, very, very Bloodborne, but you play as Pinocchio.
But it's like gothy Pinocchio. So he's like a regular, like he doesn't look like he's Pinocchio.
Yeah.
But like he is Pinocchio. And then at one point,
Yeah, he doesn't even look like Pinocchio.
no, it's like, well, it's inspired by Pinocchio. So he's like, it's like when you do those adaptations and it's like, oh, this is actually just Hansel and Gretel. But it's not like you see them and know they're Hansel.
They have to tell you that it's Hansel and Gretel. Like, if there was no Pinocchio hints of anything here, I think people watch that trailer and they would not say this is okay. Like, there's an old guy where I guess it's Geppetto, and there's a lady whose face is decaying, and I think she's like the blue fairy, I think is the idea, and he has like a little...
Oh, yeah, Jiminy Cricket was in
Jiminy
there.
Cricket
That was cute.
speaking in a canister type of thing. But they showed an additional 12 minutes of gameplay for this Lies of P game. And like the gameplay trailer already looked exactly like Bloodborne, but then that extended gameplay, it's like, oh my God. Like, Bloodborne fans, you should probably pay attention to Lies of P. There's no way it's going to be as good, just to be very clear. But it's like somebody going this hard to try and make a new Bloodborne.
It looks like a weird American McGee's Alice mixed with Bloodborne.
Yeah.
Like, it's not as like, it's, Industrial Revolution London, but there's a little bit more of like a playfulness to it. Like, the bosses are very sort of like storybook characters gone wrong kind of situation. I don't understand his hair. He's got that like Timothée Chalamet hair
Very
going on.
Chalamet.
I don't know what I don't know how the budget that went into his hair, but it was immense.
Infinite. And the cool thing, Leo, is because... I'm sorry, I don't want to spoil this for you. He's not a real boy. So he's like got parts that are still like automaton style, where he's got a prosthetic arm that he can like swap out with different parts
It's
and
a little
stuff.
steampunky.
Yeah.
Is what it looked like.
Yeah. It's just weird that Pinocchio is hotter than he's ever been. I mean, because
Did it just enter
is
public
this the
domain or
hottest
something?
Pinocchio?
I don't think so. No, I think it was the public domain a long time ago. But it's weird because like there's the new Disney movie that Robert Zemeckis is directing with Tom Hanks as Geppetto, and that's coming out soon-ish on Disney Plus. And then there's Del Toro's animated version of Pinocchio, and now
There's the Italian one from a year or two ago.
oh really?
Yeah.
You saw it?
Maybe that was this year. We started watching it. It was too scary for my partner. Oh, no. It was too weird.
Well, then don't show her Liza P because it's dark and twisted. But yeah, it seems wild. It's going to be a cross-gen game, and I'm very curious to see how it ends up. Leo, predict the Metacritic score for Liza P based on everything we told you today, please.
81.
I think.
Good prediction.
I think that would be.
It's day one Game Pass too, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh, it's going to be big. It's going to be big. So 2023.
Do you think real boy mode will be like your ultimate mode? You charge up and can enter for 20 seconds at a time?
Oh my God, that is totally going to be like for the final boss. You become the real boy, right? So you kind of get nerfed in a way,
Right.
but then you have to kind of build back up and learn new abilities. Like good boy-like abilities.
Yeah, get your boy
Like he's a
power
good boy.
back.
Like what?
Yeah, flicking boogers. I don't know. What
Doesn't
boy
Pinocchio
Spitballs.
like in the Disney movie? Doesn't he like drink alcohol? Doesn't he like
Well, Pleasure
do
Island
some really
is-
messed up stuff?
Oh my God.
Oh,
hang on.
yeah,
Now
he
I'm excited
does.
about this idea of going to Pleasure Island in this game, where like it's co-op and everyone's going to Pleasure Island together, and they're all turning into donkeys.
I don't
That
think I
is-
want to play this game with you.
It is traumatic. Do
Leave
y'all
me
remember?
out.
Do you
The
remember
The
how messed
original
up that is?
Pinocchio movie scared me as a
Yes.
child.
I mean, the whale.
Doesn't he
That's one
drown?
thing.
Yeah, the whale, right?
The whale.
He drowns. He's like laying face down.
Basically
It's like a little like
dying.
biblical.
It is.
Yep. Oh,
yeah.
very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't go to Pleasure Island, kids, or you'll turn into a donkey. But like that scared me so much as a kid, because it's not just going there and turning into a donkey, but it's the scariest thing. This is always locked in my mind as the scariest thing. It's the cool buddy Lampwick. Is that his name?
Sure.
Who is his buddy who turns into the donkey? He's like begging Pinocchio for help as he's turning, and that is the most terrifying
Yeah.
thing. That's like in Fatal Frame 2. I had to stop playing it because I was too terrified. Because there's a ghost in that game that's like, "Help me, it hurts." Like something scary asking you for help. Like that is somehow 3 times as scary. It is so effed up. Lies of P, everybody. You know the name. What are you gonna do?
I mean, at this point, I feel like the name is actually working in its favor because we keep going like Lies of P, really, and the more we say it, the more it's like ingraining into us in society. And I've seen it all over the internet. People just being like, "Why would you call this that? Why would you call it that?"
It's a sequel to the song "Friends of P" from 30 years ago.
I think so. Speaking of Timothée Chalamet, they opened the show with a Dune game from Funcom, which seemed exciting. Where it's like, okay, like Atreides is going to be
more Dune content for me to ignore. So.
That's right. Well, I was excited about that Dune Spice Wars. I've still been meaning to check it out.
I was going to say, not that one.
Nope, not that one. So Funcom published that one. That's like the 4X game. That's also a little bit RTS. But then this is one that looked like, oh my god, it's like a action adventure game.
It looked really good.
Yeah, we were playing as Paul. This is going to be crazy. And then at the end, it's like survival MMO, which I'm excited for as well. I just had to like recalibrate based on that trailer.
I think it would have been so much more cooler and successful as like a single player thing, but I feel like what is it about the siren song of an MMO that they were like that spoke to them?
Well, survival MMO, does that mean like Rust? Is that what they're going for?
I think, let's see. So I think they had, so they say, quote on their site, head into unmapped sectors and be the first to discover secrets and riches before the Coriolis storms once again shift the sands and alter the landscape.
Rust.
Okay,
but I think it's an interesting idea of like, oh, you get bonuses for discovering new lands, and then it can just kind of remix the world based on the sands of the planet. Like, that's an interesting idea. But then it's like a survival game without trees to chop down? What are we to do?
Just gather sand? I don't know what Dune is. So.
Well, it's all about the spice. It's got to flow.
It's like hot people walking around in the sand.
There's a worm, and the main guy's name is Paul.
Right.
Yeah.
Lies of P.
Yeah.
Oh
there
my
we
God.
go.
Whoa. Chalamet, it's all there. I'm very curious to see how it turns out and all that stuff. But Sarah, I mean, you like MMOs, you like survival games, you like Dune.
I don't like every MMO.
Okay.
It's not like a one and done situation.
Yeah. All right. Janet, did you watch the
Yep.
thing? What stood out to you? What was the star of the show?
I wouldn't say star of the show, but one thing that did stand out to me was that game where you're customizing like the minifigures by the people that made. Was it from the Subnautica?
Yep,
team?
the Subnautica team.
The Subnautica team. And I still actually have not dug into Subnautica, unfortunately,
it's so
but
good.
I liked just how the developer was talking about they generally will jump like from different genres, and I think them having experience jumping from different genres gives me like confidence in what they're setting out to do, even though it is different than what they did before. But I forget like the name of it.
Yeah,
but the thing that stood out to me from that was the fact that it's little like figurines, and that you paint. Well, in the game you paint them, and I just think that like there was so much attention to detail there. And even though I'm not someone that's like in love with that genre, or like I don't play with like figurines or like do customization like that, I just felt like it was such a cool, smart detail to put in, and I'm like, okay, it seems like this team really knows what they're talking about with this.
They love Warhammer. So the game is called Moonbreaker, and it's from Unknown Worlds, the Subnautica developers. And the interesting hook for this thing, it's basically Warhammer. The characters aren't even animated. It's like these are minifigs that you're placing down. You have a range where you can move to and attack and all that fun stuff. But the interesting hook is that it's a world that's been developed for years now from Brandon Sanderson, the sci-fi author. So I guess he's been working with that team, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited for that team. I'm not excited to play it, but I'm excited for that team with the idea of like, that's so cool that like they took all the success of Subnautica, and then like I think it's some of the founders of the studio, this is kind of their side project. It's like, well, we just really like minifigs, and so we're going to make a game that's all about battling minifigs and go into exquisite detail about painting them and all that stuff. Sarah, yay, nay?
It looks solid.
Okay.
I feel like people who play it and people who like that kind of stuff, that this is going to be like a treat for them.
Yeah, they haven't gotten something like this.
Yeah. So Moonbreaker. So it's coming out September 29th, 2022, and there's going to be a play test as well and all that fun stuff. Okay. Anything else stand out?
Was this where they announced Dwarf Romantic was coming to Switch?
Yeah,
Ooh,
Leo.
nice.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that on my Switch. I said, I wonder if that's on here. Because it would fit great.
It will be soon. Yeah. What's that game all about again, Leo?
Placing tiles so your community looks nice. Placing trains together, rivers together.
Yeah. It's a very peaceful, chill, relaxing, lovely game. Yeah.
Very.
Let's see. DualSense Edge. They announced a new PlayStation controller, basically like the Elite controller for Microsoft, right? Where it's like, oh, you can customize it even more. I hope it's heavier. That would be satisfying. I'm sure it will be.
I hope the battery life is really good.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Then other lighter announcements. Leo, I assume you didn't watch the thing?
No.
Okay. Hideo Kojima came on the screen. Jeff Keighley said, I'm introducing my dear friend Hideo Kojima. He got out there. There's been a lot. Kojima's been tweeting about this trailer. He's been editing and all this stuff, showing his Adobe Premiere timeline. He got out there, and what do you think he announced, baby?
I've heard about his podcast.
Damn it. Yeah, that's it. So, yeah, his podcast is going to be exclusive to Spotify, and it's starting up now. Sarah?
Yeah.
We're going to listen to it, and we're going to talk about it.
It's crazy that, like, we have a podcast. Now Kojima has a podcast.
Coincidence?
You know?
That's
We're competing
crazy.
with Kojima.
Yeah, now Kojima is, like, in our pool now.
Yeah, we have real competition.
It's time
with
for us
the
to make a
Koji
game.
Pro.
Mm-hmm.
Janet, I think we're on the same page about how horrible Spotify is from a user perspective.
I don't think I like Spotify.
Oh, do you? I thought I saw some tweets about it not working for you in ways.
Oh,
that's
I
similar.
definitely have had. It's not been like the perfect relationship, but
Okay.
But it is
But
the one that I'm
overall-
in. You know.
Understood.
Yeah. What is your music player of choice? And are you Apple Music?
No, I'm just trapped in Spotify because
Okay,
I've been
yeah,
using
yeah.
it for so long.
Oh.
So
My
playlist
favorite
are-
straight like service for like music was Rdio. If you like remember that from many years ago, but it went under, so I was like, well, I gotta go somewhere now.
My RDO went under also. Read that online.
Oh, no. Leo. I'm
L's left and
sorry.
right.
Yeah, so they're going to have Jeff Keighley on that podcast, apparently, for like a news segment and stuff. And like this is kind of a fun throwback to Kojima had a podcast, the Kojima Productions podcast, Kojima Productions Report, that Ryan Payton used to host back in the day. Like in the build-up to Metal Gear Solid 4, it was like, oof, peak good gaming podcast because they just like have a little tidbit of news here and there and like dive into like the sound design of Metal Gear Solid 4. And like I was so hot and heavy over that game. It was really fun to like take every morsel from that old podcast.
I thought it was a little funny that this dropped like I think the day after Keighley had announced for Game Awards there's going to be a new category that's like best video game adaptation, which obviously this podcast wouldn't fall under because it's not
Right.
a podcast adaptation of a game. But it was just kind of amusing to be like, is this so Kojima could get another award for his podcast?
So it's coming out September 8th, apparently. It's called Brain Structure. And they have like kind of a pilot episode, like an episode 0 in the feed right now. And it's about where Kojima gets his ideas from. And I listened to it and quote, "My ideas come from living every minute of every day to its fullest and feeling as much as I can."
God, that sounds exhausting.
No wonder I
love
haven't
it.
made anything
This
substantial.
is why I'll never be like a genius.
I would
or a
like to-
savant.
I want to feel as little as
Yeah,
possible.
same.
I'm glad the industry has somebody like Kojima. I still have been
Yeah.
meaning to play Death Stranding, but like I love there's just we can have a figure out there and be like, hey, I'm doing a podcast and it could make news, you know?
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, Leo?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think something interesting to unpack from this stream is one of the things that they kicked it off with was a game called Everywhere.
Oh God.
Okay, yeah.
This
Sequel to
So
everything?
you asked what we were excited about. That's why I'm checking my Twitter because I tweeted out about the whole like thing.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's just Second Life. They're just re-skinning Second
I
Life.
did not
Oh.
like Everywhere. I thought it was
Ooh,
a
okay.
very weak
Go to their
showing.
website right now
Yeah.
and read what it says.
There's
the game
barely
is.
anything on the website. It's
It
confusing.
has a description of what they think the game is going to be.
Everywhere seamlessly blends gameplay, adventure, creativity, and discovery in an all-new
Yeah.
multi-world gaming experience that redefines how players connect with one another
Yeah.
and the digital world around them.
Yeah.
But also, they made it very clear in that video that, quote, "There's something in it that will definitely appeal to you, no matter what it is that you love to do."
Famously the sign of a
Convenient.
good thing.
You'll like something in this game.
It's
Okay.
everything and nothing. all
yeah,
at
literally,
once.
that's yeah.
Yeah, so
Whatever you want, that's this.
I will give it credit. So this is the new game from Leslie Benzies, who was the producer at Rockstar since GTA 3. And if you remember back in 2016, I believe it was, there was a whole hullabaloo where he went on a sabbatical and then basically they locked him out of his office and like, hey, don't come back to Rockstar. And then he sued Rockstar for $150 million because he was the one that championed Red Dead Online. Or sorry, not Red Dead Online. I'm sorry to bring it up, Leo. I'm sorry.
Dude.
But GTA Online is saying, like, the Housers didn't even want to do this thing. I was the one that did it. Now it's making $1 gazillion. You should give me some of that. So this is his new studio that he founded. And somebody else, the assistant game director, was also, like, the QA supervisor for GTA Online, Adam Whiting. But the new studio is called Build a Rocket Boy. And this is the big debut of what they're working on.
With their space name.
That's, ooh.
Oh,
See?
shit.
There it is. But I will give them credit for this pitch of it's kind of everything. Run around with your friends. You can shoot. You can drive. And they did not use the metaverse word once, which I'm sure when they're talking to people that are investing in this, that is a big thing, is like, hey, creators, quote unquote, of GTA Online, they're going to make a game that's kind of like the metaverse, give us money. And so I'd imagine people are, backing up dump trucks of cash. But at least in this pitch, they were focusing on it's
God, that's
everything.
such a low bar.
Yeah.
That bar is pretty low.
I feel like I heard rumblings that there might be some other stuff going on with all that, but I don't know. I didn't look into it myself. So.
What do you mean, on the metaverse front?
Yeah, like someone mentioned, like it's kind of like it seems like a little Web3.
It feels
NFT,
like that.
Even though they didn't mention it. Like again,
it's
I didn't look
adjacent
into
to all that. Totally.
I did not look into any of these like alleged job listings, but like people had tweeted at me like, "Oh, I feel like I saw a listing that this, that, and the other," but I did not look into that myself.
Right.
The thing I didn't like about this was it didn't like look good. Like the game did not. I do not think they did a good job getting at least me excited for it. Like it did not look impressive. It looked very generic.
Can you paint a picture visually for someone like me who hasn't seen it?
Yeah. So it's the driving looked a little arcadey, a little bit silly.
But it's like an open world
open world.
game.
It had fantastical elements. There's a lot of concept art that was very fantastical. Then they showed glimpses. There were like glimpses of like picture in picture where it's like, okay, it looks like kind of shooting that's near a GTA Online or a little bit like a Fortnite. So that's the confusing web of inspirations that it's dealing with. But then the part that gets really confusing is they're like, look, we want this to be a world where people can create and share and socialize, but also we care about storytelling. And then there was this other layer where there's like a guy who looks like he's straight out of Max Payne, and it's like this serious, more realistic art style, and it's him going through some dramatic, confusing things. So I think it might be like an Assassin's Creed layer with like Abstergo
We don't
or
know
something.
what we saw, Leo.
We
I'm going to be
have
honest
no
with you.
clue what
Also,
we
please
saw,
check
yeah.
the video version for everything Sarah just did, which is very funny.
Do you think that they're trying to come for GTA Online, all the RPing? Do you think they're trying to
That's what I
create?
was thinking, talking
Yeah,
about it as
they're
the
trying
role
to
play.
create environments for people to role play in.
Yes, absolutely.
And maybe they will, like, for what it's worth, like, the game could actually be, like, really good, and this could, like, age really poorly. But from looking at that trailer, like, I saw it and was like, no, absolutely not. And as an added negative, right after that, like, I really pay attention to, like, what Jeff and, like, any host kind of says and asks, like, the developers, because I feel like it kind of colors, like, ideally it would be, like, the ideal setup, right? These aren't, like, I think sometimes people say that, like, oh, Jeff's not given hard-hitting questions. I'm like, he's hosting a show. It's not like inviting a developer onto, like, a long podcast to grill them about, like, their lives. This is more like, hey, what are you working on? So tell us something that we can get excited about. Like, that's the job to, like,
And then
it's
he'll always do
softball.
that laugh and ask the question, but like, okay, what are you working on next though? He'll ask the question that there's no universe they can answer, and then he'll laugh, and then that's the outro.
Yeah,
That's the style.
that's the gig. But
Right.
even with that, he said, we're a bit confused. What can you tell us? The fact that he said that in what should be like, and hey, maybe it was a flub on his part, I don't know, in what should be like a softball, nothing but positive scenario, like that like struck a chord with me. I
And
was
the
like,
developer
it is so
couldn't
clearly.
even, like, he gave the most, like, political answer, like, a non-answer. He was like, oh, it's going to be in the hands of the players to create their own stories in this, like, open environment. And I'm like, that doesn't help. Like, I can create my story in a lot of things.
Hey everybody, it's GTA Online with some
built it.
narrative on top of
Yeah,
that.
you do.
Like,
You decide what the game is. Like, we don't. That's too much work.
it's
You
GTA Online.
You
Just
tell me
say
what
it's
the game
GTA
is.
Online. Like,
It's like when Beyond Good and Evil 2 was like, what if you made the music and we kind of like didn't pay you that well? And I'm like, I don't know if this game's coming out.
so I mean, I would be more skeptical if it was just concept art, and they said it's going to be a ways off. But they say they've been working on it for 5
They said
years.
2023.
2023 is when it's coming out. They've
wow.
been working on it for 5 years. So like the fact that they showed any gameplay at all, it's like, okay, that's impressive.
I'm excited to see what the hell it is.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think coming from that pedigree, it's like, yes, he's the producer. He has a ton of Rockstar experience. I'm curious to see. I don't think they listed the other people in that video and like their titles, because I was trying to figure out how many are former Rockstar. I'm curious how many people went over there with them and all this stuff, because obviously one person with all that Rockstar experience can't make a world this big. But I think he could have the funding to make something ambitious, and we should be paying attention when, quote unquote, the brains behind GTA Online is making their new game, because GTA Online has consumed the entire world, if you haven't noticed. Yeah.
It's also horrible though. So it's kind
The
of
game?
GTA Online. Different stories for different folks, but GTA Online just really bad experience
Do you
to
think
play.
because it's from 2013?
No, I think it was fun when it came out. I played hundreds of hours the first year or
Really?
two. But yeah, where it's at now, it's flabbergasting how many people still play it.
Yeah, it definitely could use a refresh, and the fact that this will be dropping before GTA 6 and whatever they have for the online successor. Yeah, I'm curious how it goes. And then also, I mean, the weird thing is there's also Dan Houser, who left Rockstar, and then he founded that studio, Absurd Ventures and Games. It was kind of, he didn't announce it, but I think people dug into it and found that he founded this new studio in 2021. So it'll be interesting to see like these two former Rockstar giants and what angle they go. If one of them's going the GTA Online route and one of them's going for like the more story-focused content. But Everywhere is the name of that game. We'll talk about it again.
Interesting name.
What a not good name.
Yeah, that's a bad name. Lies of P is like a way better name than Everywhere.
That's a good debate.
I had
that's
to, when I tweeted about it, I had to put Everywhere in quotations so people would know it wasn't part of the sentence, and that's why you know it's a bad game.
How could it be? How could it be Everywhere? How could that be accurate of a name for
it's
it?
Like everywhere, all the time, all at once, sometimes.
That's the name of the film. That's right.
I've never gotten the name of that film correct.
No one has.
No.
It's fun. It's the greatest work of art of all time for this year, but we'll talk about that at the end of the year, I'm sure.
Yeah, cross that bridge.
Yeah. Let's see. Other stuff. Ghost Simulator 3 trailer was like perfection. It looked like exactly what we wanted. I think that was the most successful trailer of the entire show. Like maybe the best outing was for Lies of P, but that was the trailer. It was like, yep, that looks like the most fun.
I said it on the stream, but the real winners were the third-party agencies that you pay to make video game trailers in this, because we saw so many CG trailers and very little actual gameplay. Like someone out there has a monopoly on making gameplay trailer or just game trailers.
Yeah, absolutely. They're called Blur. Dead Island 2, Leo, got re-revealed.
Wow.
Isn't that a blast from the past?
Yes.
Yeah, it was 2014 at E3. Sony showed off Dead Island 2, and they're like, it's Jaeger making it, the people who made Spec Ops The Line.
The trailer with the guy jogging?
Yeah, which I rewatched.
So long ago.
The trailer is very good. It really is one of the best trailers, I think, ever made.
Wow.
Ever.
For anything.
That's very that's a little
No, but like for game trailers, I would put it on top 15 of all time. Like I really think that trailer is just perfection for like a reveal CG trailer made by some studio trailer house that Sarah hates. But then at a certain point, Sumo took it over, Sumo Digital, and they were developing it, and then that fell apart. And so now it is Dambuster making this version of Dead Island 2. And they made like Homefront: The Revolution.
I defended that game a lot when it first came out.
Really? You liked it?
Yeah, I did.
Well, there we go.
I played a lot of the multiplayer on Live.
Wow, so you have multiple things to defend.
Yeah.
Good lord.
I was digging my grave back then.
As opposed to now where it's all just like modern takes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Only the hottest. But Dead Island 2, it takes place in LA, or as they call it, Hell A.
Is that what they were calling it?
They were calling it Hell A.
God.
Yeah. Is that not cool?
That's so very cool.
Had you heard that, Janet, or was that strike you as clever?
It struck me as I hope they do the preview event in LA and that I get to go. But
Oh, they absolutely will.
Of course they'll do the preview event in LA.
yeah, but that doesn't mean I don't get to go.
Right.
I know you're watching.
Manifest it
Invite
now.
me there. My email is in my bio on Twitter.
Hey, get a load of this, everybody. I was going back and watching old footage of the original version of Dead Island 2, which is really wild. Like IGN had like gameplay like exclusive or whatever back in the day. So it was like 10 minutes of original Dead Island 2 gameplay from like 2014 at Gamescom back then. And it was interesting to go back and watch that because developers were talking about like, oh yeah, there's no end to this game. It's just like constant generating missions. It's kind of like the world's smallest MMO is how they put it. Are you crying?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. But in that, they're talking about the location in LA, and they said that it was LA, San Francisco, and another city. So I'm curious to see if this new version of Dead Island 2
Did they
is
just shrink
yeah.
California? Is the other city, is it like San Diego?
I did see someone point out that LA is not an island, which is true.
I said that too.
That's a minor point. Yeah.
At what point do you think they had that conversation?
Do you think they
in-house?
like finally did the thing where they broke California off? Like the fault finally ripped California
so
off.
is there gonna be
and
a
the rest of
narrative,
the,
like a narrative, like part of it?
Because there is
So the
that fault
zombies-
that California rests on,
right.
and they're waiting for the big one.
Honestly,
and eventually they'll drift
if they
off
don't
into
Oh
bring
my
it
god,
up.
Yeah.
that is absolutely. So they said they got to rebuild this game from the ground up, and if that's true, and like they could focus just on LA, like that'd be awesome for like 75% of the way through the game. Then the big earthquake happens.
They call it the big one.
The big one happens, and then that's why it's called Dead Island.
And before that happens, they're like, "Are you sure you want to continue?" And I'm like, "I love when games do that. It is
Yeah.
very fourth wall breaking, but I'm like, it's super convenient."
Something serious is about to happen.
Yeah.
But anyways, get a load of this. Back in that video, they were talking about making a game in Hollywood and LA and all that stuff, and they said that anytime that the Hollywood sign appears in a game or a movie or anything, you have to pay for it. Like you have to pay
Who do you
the
pay?
owner of that sign.
Oh, okay.
there's some person that you actually have to license that sign to unless you change it.
You know, Shrek 2 also takes place in LA.
Yeah,
does it really?
Uh-huh.
Do they have the Hollywood sign?
They do.
Well, yeah, but it says
far
far away. Yeah.
Therefore, they don't have to pay.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So it's just
Parody.
if you change it up. Yep. It's scathing satire.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dead Island 2. It's coming out February 23rd, 2023.
Why does it sound like you're auctioning something?
That's my voice falling apart.
If it doesn't become an island, will you guys be disappointed?
A little
will you
bit.
feel like cheated by the franchise name?
Yeah, but also, North America and South America together is one big island.
That's a great point. That's a great point. No one's thought of it that way.
Thank you.
And it's going to be cross-gen as well, so look forward to that. That was a bunch of other smaller things that are exciting in their own way. New Civilizations and Age of Empires 4. Which
Quantic
Sarah
Dream has
pointed out.
something new.
Yeah.
But they didn't show a lot of it. It was
Under the Waves.
Yes, Under the Waves.
So this is Quantic Dream, our beloved studio that made Detroit Become Human. Everybody remembers Beyond Two Souls, of course. They're making a new game. Well, specifically, they're publishing a game.
Right.
It's a confusing thing because they're working on that Star Wars Eclipse, and so the actual developer is named Parallel Studio. And so Quantic Dream is publishing this thing. And what was your read on what was happening in that trailer?
It's like a artsy underwater. Well, it's not under the waves, so it's underwater. Like artsy underwater, potentially story-driven vibes was kind of the quick hit, but it was a very brief showing. I believe they showed a character walking across an underwater bridge or something, and then at one point the text comes up that says under the waves.
It was giving underwater existentialism, which I feel is kind of what we got in Soma, but this doesn't look scary like Soma was.
Are you a fan of Soma?
I really like Soma.
Okay, that's on my list. I think it'd make a good deepest dive at some point. 'Cause I've never played it. I think it'd be interesting. And they patched it so there's no enemies and stuff in there, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's an option.
It's an option. right. But yeah, I'm curious to see how that goes. And Quantic Dream, I looked it up. They've only published a couple of things. Oh, they published the Sea of Solitude director's cut on Switch.
That was after the fact, though. They weren't part of the. I forgot who the original publisher of Sea of Solitude was.
EA?
Yeah, because it's an EA original. Yeah.
Right.
For small stuff, Friends vs. Friends looked really cool.
Yeah.
It had a wildly colorful, almost too colorful, but I'm down for it. Art style, very cartoony, very playful, and then out of nowhere, a gun showed up, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about the gun part.
Yeah, but also cards. It kind of looked like neon white.
Yes, I literally. Yep, it was giving like neon white with a more, I don't know, almost not Steven Universe. I feel because it's not flat. It's very vibrant.
Right.
But yeah, more cartoony, playful neon white. But I don't know if that's actually what the gameplay flow looks like because they didn't get into heavy detail on what exactly it is. But yeah, I'm interested in that one.
How does it feel to be podcasting in person again, Janet?
It's good. I like it. I haven't done it in 2 years.
2 years?
Wow.
Yeah, 2.5 or something.
Is Nintendo Voice Chat at IGN?
Yeah, probably, or maybe beyond. Those are the two I was on the most. So
yeah. That's so weird.
It's nice that this table has a curve. At IGN, they're straight, so you kind of just lean forward and look at people.
Yeah, that is tough. It's nice to basically making direct eye contact with Leo throughout this entire show.
Yeah.
I haven't blinked.
It's kind of unnerving, actually. Your eyes are like prunes.
He's really locked in.
Sarah, you want to talk about Final Fantasy 14?
Yes.
Okay.
Finally.
What's going on?
So we have the 6.2 update.
Oh, okay.
So once there's a big expansion, you get these kind of little bits of updates, which just kind of strings you along until the next expansion. So we got new story, new trial, which is very fun, based on Final Fantasy IV. New raid, new dungeon.
Okay, based on Final Fantasy
Moving
IV.
on.
Yeah.
I am fascinated by that idea.
Yeah.
So, I know that they have the gold saucer in there. They've kind of been mining. They have the Magitech armor from 6. And so now this is the big push for all right, now it's all about nostalgia for 4 specifically.
I don't know how they choose.
Okay.
But this is somehow, and it's not I wouldn't say the themes are similar, but they just kind of take the bosses and they just rehash them and they're these are the bosses in this area now. And we've kind of, there's a new story for them and what they're doing, but you'll recognize them and you'll recognize the music.
How does that work lore-wise? Just to cram all these different Final Fantasies into this. I understand the lore for.
I mean, it's kind of taking the image of the person, of the boss, taking the imagery, but then kind of reworking it into a new scenario.
Okay, so it fits within the world.
It doesn't feel you're not who is this? This is obviously just ripped out of a different Final Fantasy game. Because for the most part, I've only played past Final Fantasy X. So I'm always confused. I'm always like, is this a Final Fantasy thing? Is this a Final Fantasy thing?
Right.
So all my education is kind of coming through Final Fantasy XIV.
That's so bizarre. And even like music from Final Fantasy IV is in there?
I only recognized, I was like, this is a Final Fantasy, because I went into the trial and it hit you with like that very distinct Final Fantasy IV like boss music.
Okay.
I don't know how to describe it, but
Well,
I
you
like
could
something
sing
like
it with
struck
your
me
mouth.
to my core. It's like dun 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 dun, like I don't
Final
know.
Fantasy IV.
Yeah. But it was like it
The
struck me.
DMCA strike is coming.
Yeah, it's
It's too
coming.
accurate.
But so yeah, there's a little bit of new story. There's new raids, which is like just harder things for people who like things to be hard. Really fun. I've enjoyed it. I really feel like nothing's really feeling stale or stagnant. Really liking it. But the big update was the Island Sanctuary.
Ooh.
And I want you to tell me, when I say that there's an island sanctuary,
Yeah.
I want you to tell me what you think that is.
Are there like zombies on it?
Chow
No.
Garden.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
So I was expecting every player basically got their own island sanctuary, and it's huge. And you can go to it, and your friends can visit your island sanctuary.
Right.
They're trying to stem the Final Fantasy XIV housing crisis a little bit that we're currently in.
I heard actually Biden
it's hitting
did that.
Yeah,
everywhere.
it's hitting
No one is
everywhere. So
safe.
they're trying to like stem the Final Fantasy XIV housing crisis by giving every player their own island sanctuary. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go there. You can farm, you can like care for little animals. And I was like, I'm gonna decorate my island. It's gonna be great. Absolutely not. I show up to this little island, and they just kind of give it to you. It's not like story thing. They're like, you deserve this, and I'm like, you know what? You're right. I do deserve this.
Nice.
And you have to gather. It's kind of like Animal Crossing New Horizons, where you have to gather so many materials to build things on your island, and then all of a sudden they're like, build a workshop.
Okay.
So I build a workshop, and they're like, get materials for your workers to make things that you can sell. And it's its own game within a game, because the currencies don't overlap, like the skills don't overlap,
Oh.
the currencies. It's literally
That's
a
kinda cool.
game in a game, but it's like, I thought I was gonna be like relaxing, chilling by the beach,
Right.
decorating my little cottagecore island. No, I am a manager at like Target. You have to gather materials, and then you get like a Google Calendar where you assign what your workers are going
Hang
to
on,
make.
Janet's eyebrows
on
are
an
raised. She's
actual-
very into this
It is
now.
actually an Earth. They call it Earth time, and I'm like, please no.
Earth
Please
time?
As opposed to
no.
what?
Eorzea time.
Okay.
But it's like, so I have to assign what they make. So I have like a little schedule in the game, and it's like, okay, from 8 a.m. our time to like noon, you will be making this, and then after that, you'll be making this, and you have to. It's like a 7-day week.
So you already...
Oh,
They work
I
7
feel-
days straight. Doesn't sound
No,
like
you
me.
have to give them 2 days off.
Okay.
You get
wow,
to pick
Sarah,
the
I'm really
days.
upset that you have to give your workers 2 days
I
off.
was
I
like,
did not expect
I
that
don't
kind
know
of
why
management
they
from
need
you.
days off.
Wow.
I mean, playing 14 already feels
You
like
better
a
watch out.
full-time
They're gonna
job.
union.
They literally,
Yeah.
they probably should, because honestly, it's a lot of. They're working from dawn to dusk, but like I have to go in there and like tell them what to make. Like I can assign it over
Yeah.
the course of a week.
Classic manager. Like, I can't believe I have to assign this to
I'm
people.
literally like making the schedule for like who has to come in when.
Island Sanctuary is definitely a misnomer for that.
Exactly.
But it is the most interested I've been in that game, is hearing
Yeah,
about
well,
that.
it's
Really? You like that
the
managing and the
island-
schedule stuff?
The
very
island
kinda
is
like
huge.
that, yeah.
The island is huge, and you have to go and like level up your island, and then you can gather new materials to make new things, and you can collect, animals, like really cute Final Fantasy animals, put them on your farm, pet your animals, feed
do
your
wanna
animals,
Yeah.
your crops. But it's like then you can make a building. So I'm making like a bathhouse. I'm making an onsen, and they're like, I build it. And they're like, it'll be done 9 a.m. tomorrow. And I'm
Gross.
like, oh my God. Like,
Stay home from work.
I think the thing I hate most is when video games do Earth time. They're like,
Really?
come back tomorrow. I'm like, no, I'm playing now.
Yeah, I shouldn't have
I'm
been worried
literally
about...
playing now.
I don't know. I was focused on the lore of Final Fantasy IV and 14. I should be more worried about the lore of Earth time. Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? What is this concept?
They know about us?
Yeah.
Can they see me? So-
Why is it Earth time? Are the workers like not from that world?
Well, so there's Eorzea time in the game, which is kind of an in-game clock,
Okay.
which
Does it
kind
move
of
faster
It
then?
moves
Okay,
faster.
that's
So
why.
it's like you're not like if you play at night, you're not constantly standing around in the dark, right? And
Right,
some
right.
things in the world for crafting and gathering will only spawn at certain Eorzea time. Eorzea is the name for Earth in Final Fantasy XIV, so it'll only spawn in Eorzea time. And then there are a few things like your retainers which go on Earth time. So it kind of like Earth time, come back tomorrow.
Can you, at some point, I want you to like draw out a graph that we can like share on MinnMax's Twitter account or something of like your love for Final Fantasy 14. You know, I just want to know, like, with each expansion
where it
it's
spikes,
at, each update where it's at. Like, are you plateauing? Are you declining?
I don't think so. I never considered myself like a day one gamer, you know, where the patch comes out and you like do like content, like give me the content. But I did that. I literally, on day one, the patch went live. I literally played every single new thing they had added to the game.
And this is day one Earth time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Day one Earth time.
Cool. And it's good.
It's fun.
Okay.
I mean, like, I don't know what else. What do you want me to say? Oh,
Wait,
yeah.
So you like the Sanctuary?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
that's
mean, like,
okay.
it's definitely, I can feel that it's damaging to my mental health.
This is the angriest I've ever seen someone like something.
Yeah, that is the tone that I'm trying to figure out here. It's
well,
a
it's like
conundrum.
I play it and you're like, this is going to ruin me.
Right.
Like, now you're telling me I have to log in and, like, set a schedule for things because I want a ponytail.
Would you have wanted them to do it differently, though? Because I do sense some frustrations with like, how they rolled out
expected it to be a little more low-key chill.
Okay.
Like, I
So
thought it
you
was
feel
going to
like
be
you
like,
were
I'm going to
misled.
craft a bed and put it in my cabin, and I'm going to craft, like, a really cute rug and put it... And no, it's like you must manage a team of workers to create, like, capitalism, get your warehouses running, like, we got to export things. And I'm like, well, I thought that I was on vacation.
How much do you get to engage with like the things that you make? 'Cause that's always like the breaking point for me in Sims. Like, if I put up an arcade machine, can I at least like fake do the little animate? You know, like how much can you engage with like the bathhouse that you made? Well, I don't know if it's done yet.
I mean, you can go and you can like sit in the tub probably, but there is no like take up bath animation. Right. It's very much like I sit.
Did it feel worth it though when you like went to sit?
Yeah, because I was like, I waited an entire day for this, and I gathered materials for an hour for this, so it better look nice.
Hey, guess what game I was playing recently? I saw it come through my old email inbox, and I said, I can't say no to that. I love a good trivia game. So I've been playing Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?
I did see some rumblings about that on Slack. What is going on with that?
They're huge. These rumblings are huge. They just made a new version. It's like it's available on everything. What's that?
Are you?
The answer is yes. Although there is a question, Leo, is a cucumber a fruit or a vegetable?
Is it a trick question?
Leo, answer the question, please.
My heart says vegetable, but it's also got seeds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, and that's what makes it a fruit is seeds?
That's what I heard about tomatoes, is that's why they're fruits.
So no vegetable has seeds?
This is just what I heard.
Okay, so what are you going with? You're on live TV right now.
I say vegetable.
That's what I said, and they said, no, you're not smarter than a fifth grader.
That's what I feel like. It's like the whole thing feels kind of scammy. Like, I feel like they're like, are you smarter than a fifth grader? And it's like, nobody... What can the fifth grader do? Can they do taxes?
Right.
I didn't think so. Like,
well, I can't either, but still.
Yeah. People my age can. And they make money off of it.
Right. Yeah, some of the questions... Some of the questions that would
it's
pop
more
up.
Like tricky trivia questions that maybe a child would know.
Right. Did you all watch that show?
I've seen it before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched enough to become upset.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, they pick like the top fifth grader in the state and stuff, and then they pick like Dave from Trader Joe's.
Well, it is
just to
weird
drag
thing.
him in front of a national audience.
Yeah, so they can like I remember. So they had like kids on the stage that they could like. It's basically the equivalent of like calling a friend and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, except you like call on them or whatever. And they have them in the game, but because it's like a cool video game. You can like get new skins for the kids on stage.
The kids?
Yeah,
new kid skin.
It's like, do you want like little Henry in the front row to be wearing like a Shakespeare outfit? Well, you gotta unlock that sucker. It's really a gross.
What system. Is your fifth grade look? I don't like this. I don't like this conversation anymore.
No, what were you gonna ask about my fifth grader?
I don't want to. I want to move on.
Okay, that's fair. It's not a great trivia game. First of all, no Foxworthy, no bye. That's always been my policy.
I forgot he was that show.
Oh, yeah.
Does it have like co-op? Like I know we got really into Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune,
which unironically hits, even though it's like a little jankily made. Like
it is. Oh, it is a cheap production.
Like they're like, I think we can come in well under budget and then still have enough for like the mini fridge in the studio or something.
Honestly, yeah, I would take that Wheel of Fortune game any day of the week. And like the budget is a lot bigger for Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader, but the game itself, and I'm talking about just like the game show design. It's like there's no comparison. Wheel of Fortune's a much better game, right?
Yeah.
Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? It's like we're in borderline deal or no deal territory with the quality of this game show, which is just hot trash, as everybody knows.
Family Feud, a game on Switch, has been similarly disappointing.
Really?
No Steve Harvey, of course.
Oh.
Crashes all the time in the third round.
What?
Have you finished the game successfully then yet?
Yes.
Okay.
We did win. I've got enough money for new cosmetics.
Nice. Uno
I'll
on
retire
Switch
off that.
is really good.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's like a literal must-have, and it does feel different than like playing it physically, like with cards, Because you might be thinking, do I need another way to play Uno? Yes, you do. And it's on
full
Switch.
Full disclosure, Sarah invented Uno.
I did not invent Uno, but that was the brand that I managed, the gaming brand.
Also, if you have Uno here, I'm down to play around Uno after this because we don't play Uno enough, I feel like.
I think we probably have one.
And if you don't have one, I have a bunch.
Really? Do you get like every new edition of Uno?
Well, like Uno makes like art sets, right? They like collaborate with artists, and then I end up with them for free.
Nice.
Yeah, remember when they announced that Uno is in Far Cry 6?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? And then no one paid attention to it?
Somebody was sweating a lot when that happened. It was me.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, I remember you told me about that. Then they announced it. It was like, I thought people were going to at least like joke about it or acknowledge it, but it was just like biggest wet fart of an announcement.
There's so many Uno DLCs. There's so many Uno DLCs that I feel like they just go like, like over it, like, and I'm like, I don't think, maybe nobody will notice.
It took me forever to remember what Far Cry 6 was about and where it was and who was in it. I feel like that game
Is it the one that just came out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
that was the last one. Yeah.
Where was Uno?
It's DLC. You got to go back to it to experience it.
I'm not going back. I'm one and done.
Is it just
Uno and done.
as simple as like Uno is a Spanish word?
Uno and done.
Therefore, Far Cry 6?
No.
I think they just wanted a fun thing to do in there, probably.
Somebody had the discussion that Uno is
like
Spanish.
the word Uno
not.
is Spanish.
Yeah. You're saying there's absolutely no connection there?
They didn't say, "Oh, it's Spanish. We obviously should do."
Well, not in
Uno.
that tone. But I think they're like, "Hey, this is a perk. Look, it connects."
No,
it's like Far
that
Cry 6.
absolutely was not the reason.
All right. Janet, do you want to talk about We Are OFK?
Sure. We're okay. I think it has.
And go.
I think it has. I want to say 5 episodes. Hopefully, I'm not
Yep, it
misspeaking
is.
on
Yep.
that. At launch, there were the first 2 were playable, and they are rolling out the other ones, I believe, weekly. But you can check me on that in case I don't know.
Yeah.
But for the review, you could play all of them. Like if you played your review code before the game came out, you could play all of them. So that's what I did. Ultimately, so it's a story-driven game that very much is in the vein of you are watching this group of like kind of millennials live through life and struggle with work. Kind of another freelance story, which I do like these freelance stories.
Yeah.
Struggle with work and kind of, have this budding passion with music in different ways. Like one character really wants to like write and sing. The other one is like a pianist, like that's classically trained. And then you meet other characters along the way, and the kind of TLDRs eventually like the band starts to form and take shape. So it's kind of their musical journey.
It's basically like watching a TV show. You're like making dialogue choices, but it's not like a telltale wild swing.
And that's literally the pitch of the the game, like from the studio. They're like, treat this like episodes you're watching like on TV.
Yeah.
But there is interactivity with, like you mentioned, Ben, like choosing some dialogue. It does not impact the story, but you can kind of, add a little bit of flavor here and there. But you're not ever like moving around the environment or interacting with optional things. It is purely like every now and then you get to choose what text gets sent, or every now and then you get to choose like how you respond.
I think it's an interesting game more than one that I enjoyed, because like learning about the development even more, it's like that confusing thing of even when they announced it, I remember it was a little bit confusing, but I mean, PlayStation was promoting this, Nintendo was promoting this. I feel like everyone's been promoting this in a huge way. And the pitch is that it's also how they're launching a band. Like, this is a game, but then also there is the band. Yeah, because
I keep getting their
OFK.
music on my Spotify Discovery,
Really?
and I wish it would stop.
Really?
Like, for the past few months, I want to say like 2 months.
Yeah.
In my Spotify Discovery, I'm like, what is this song that I don't want? Oh, it's OFK.
That's interesting.
No offense to them, but like, it is not, just because I listen to a lot of video game music, it's putting it in that category, and I'm like, not what I wanted.
So, yeah, well, maybe this could change your mind.
Not.
But I listened to an interview over at Easy Allies with Teddy, who's the creative director of this thing. And they were saying that the whole project started because they went to a Hatsune Miku concert.
Oh,
See, there we
Miku,
go.
you
There we
betrayed
go.
me.
And then it's like, hey, it's impossible to like break into the music scene. What if we made a game and launched it with this? What would you call that? Fictional band? I don't know, like the Gorillas. What do you call that type of band? Sarah, you're an expert.
I don't know. Like
Bandoid?
Bandoid?
Yeah, it's not like a...
That's the generic name of a Bandoid.
So this is their Gorillas?
It's their Gorillas.
Okay, so it's going to continue like after the game, like the songs?
The music will, I think, because it's kind of like an EP. Because I played the...
So are they no longer going to develop... Because they make the music,
an excuse to make a band.
So are they done making games and they're going to go into music?
I don't know. I mean, maybe if the game is really successful, maybe
that's very meta, because the story is about like, forget this game development stuff. Let's go make music.
Right.
It feels like we don't know how to make music. We don't know how to like break into the music industry.
Is this
we're
their
in the video
resignation game?
but we know how to make video games. So let's just like trick everybody into listening to our music, and then maybe we can just do that.
I don't know. It's an interesting approach. I like it in theory. I think playing it, I just played the first episode, and like the music video at the end, that's like an interactive music video is kind of cool. Is like every episode like that?
Yeah, every episode. And that is actually the one part where you do get to walk around because they like throw you into like a music video kind of moment, and you kind of just naturally figure out what you're supposed to do, but you just kind of like walk around and do like trippy stuff. Like in the first one, there's this cool scene where you're like picking up a bunch of cats to like return them to some dispenser or something. And I'm like, this is like, you put them down a laundry chute. And I'm like, I'm down for this. While I listen to, I think the first song that drops is Follow Unfollow, which I do like that song. So that's cool. But I will say that like those moments don't hit super hard. Like I feel like they wanted to invoke Sayonara Wild Hearts, but they like did not in those moments. And some of the videos are definitely, and songs are weaker than others. And kind of like the TLDR of like my feelings on the game is I was really hot on the first 2 episodes. Like I actually really liked the first 2 episodes. I enjoyed the drama of like what's going on with the characters, and I was intrigued like to learn more about them, even though I did find some of them frustrating in the sense of when you get invested in any media and you see someone like ruining their life, I'm like, oh, I just want to like stop you from ruining your life. So I had those moments for sure. But then episode 3 was really weak to me. Episode 4 kind of spiked back up, but then it felt like it didn't quite fit like in the right chronological order. Like you kind of look at a character that had been there the whole game, but like you never heard from them, and then you like get to know more about them, but I'm like, I don't know if I like this placement of where you put it. And then episode 5 was kind of like back down again, so it was very mixed for me. Ultimately, I feel like the game is kind of just okay. I wouldn't say it's bad, but I wouldn't say it's good. So I feel like there are better of these types of games to play in terms of like having an interesting interactive experience, even aside from like there's always that conversation of people being like, I don't like this game, or I don't think it's good because I don't get to make choices that matter. Like it never said it was a game that made choices that matter. So now if you don't like playing story games where your choices don't matter, then you should just not play any that have that mechanic. But to me, that's not why it was weak to me.
Yeah.
It was like the writing and stuff.
Is it good as like an interactive album, or is there too much stuff besides the music?
There's way too much stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely, which I feel like they lightly like gestured at it being more of like an you're living a music video, but it's not really quite that.
It's so far from like a music rhythm game. Or
I love the
like
art style though of the game as well.
Yeah.
And I think they do some like really cool stuff with like their characters, and like there are some really like fire moments writing wise, even though I think sometimes the writing can be weak. Like there are also really good heights.
Right.
So it's the kind of game where I don't recommend it, but I will if the studio stays making games, like I would want to check out their next project because I think it was a mixed bag for me of an experience.
Yeah, it's Teddy, the creative director over there. They worked on Hyper Light Drifter.
Oh, cool.
So Kyle has to check out this game. I think
there's no gliding.
There is no gliding. Maybe a future music video there can be some gliding or something. But I think I talked about it, Leo, in our GDC Patreon exclusive podcast because I went to a panel with Teddy and Chris Brown, who's the voice director on this project. Because Chris Brown's like legendary voice director in the industry. I mean, she goes back to like the early '90s at LucasArts. Like the Sam and Max games. I mean, I think basically all of Tim Schafer's stuff, like Grim Fandango, she was the voice director. So it's very cool. And like that entire pitch for that GDC panel was recording naturalistic dialogue in games. And so I was playing it just to like hear the voice acting and seeing how conversational it can feel. And so I think that's novel in the industry is to have people try and be a little more subdued and not as theatrical in all this performance.
And I liked the voice acting.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of, like, I remember talking to Blessing about this game, like, on, I think, Gamescast. And, like, he had mentioned something that I had, like Greg had played this game. So I was texting him about, like, my thoughts on it as I went through it. And I did feel like the ways the characters spoke in text felt very authentic to, like, how I text and how my friends text, like. But then it also made me feel subconscious about my life. I was like, oh my God, am I just like this NPC styled person? Like, hey, what's up?
Because like, it's all about just kind of like a hustle and trying to climb the, I don't know, creative ladder in LA. It's kind of the idea.
Yeah, it
right?
also like very much was, and I know some people think the game's a little too like, oh, this is such like a basically like millennial, like so obviously tropey. And I'm like, nah, I feel like this is real life. I'm like, I know people, like my boyfriend loves drinking boba. They're hanging out at a boba shop all the time. I'm like, they were like, oh man, I'm burned out on like my game creative thing because they don't let me be creative enough, so I'm gonna like do this other creative thing on the side. And I'm like, if that's not the creative life of like when I'm done working at my creative job, I'm gonna go and do like other creative stuff. So I found a lot of those things to be like really cool to see play out, but yeah, it was kind of mixed.
Hey Sarah.
Yeah.
Hey Sarah. Do you want to talk about Soul Hackers 2 a little bit?
Sure, we could talk about it a little bit.
Okay, Soul Hackers 2.
Soul
What
Hackers
is this
2. It's in the vein of the Shin Megami Tensei games.
It's like a spin-off of that.
Yeah,
right?
there was one that came out a really long time ago, so if you've never like heard of it or played it, don't feel bad. You don't have to play that one to play this one. Very accessible. Like, I applaud them on trying to make, the Persona-style gameplay a little more accessible.
Yeah.
It goes kind of fast in the first 5 hours. You get your party, like your entire party of, fellow characters within like the first 30 minutes.
Okay.
It was just like bam, 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 like your team is here. And I was like, that's a little fast. Like, you don't really get to, have that moment between your character and you add on people and you kind of like build your relationship out. When I spoke,
But also, you're playing Final Fantasy 15, so you should be used to that at this point, right?
what? Getting a party?
No, just out
Doesn't
of the
make any
gate,
sense.
bam, you got everybody. Good to go.
Because it's me. No, you don't. You get people in your party throughout the entire series of Final Fantasy 14.
15.
Oh. You mean the boys?
Yeah, the boys.
Yeah, and then they all leave to go do their DLC that you have to pay for.
Hey up, sucker.
Whoa, where's Prompto going? Up $5, let's go.
Yeah. Is Soul Hackers 2 good?
If you like the first 5 hours,
And it's just...
you're gonna really like the second 5 hours.
And if you like Shin Megami Tensei, let's say 5. Probably a lot of people jumped
What
in
about
with
the third
5.
5 hours?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I did not get to the third 5 hours because
Yeah.
I was like, it starts off right out of the gate, and then you can only go through so many subway dungeons before you're tired of going to abandoned subways.
Okay. Sure.
I do feel like it gave me a better understanding than any Persona game that I've played of the demon mechanics.
Oh,
Of like
interesting.
combining the demons on how the demons should work in battle, like weaknesses, like strengths. Like, it did a really good job like easing you into that
Yeah.
than any other Shin Megami Tensei game has. But it definitely fell flat on the stories. Like, their whole thing was that this is like an older group of people, like you're not high schoolers anymore. But it's like their idea of being older is that they all have like weirdly specific baggage. And then it's like to hang out, you're like, let's go to the bar, and they go to the bar and they're just like throwing back beers. They're like, oh man, sure love being not in high school, am I right, guys?
God,
and
it
you're
takes
like,
me back.
I don't know if this really reflects like adult relationships, but they're trying.
Yeah. All right. Soul Hackers 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to see it as like a Persona cousin floating out there.
Yeah.
But check out some
Definitely,
reviews,
if you're
everybody.
interested, if you've ever been interested in the Persona games, check it out.
Wait, definitely check it out if you like
Yeah.
Persona?
Yeah.
That's a bold
like
claim.
if you like the gameplay, then you can probably move past, maybe a slower story,
Right.
less
right.
to do. People when you play JRPGs, you overlook a lot of things.
Yeah.
You let a lot of things slide.
That's the way the genre operates. Yeah. Leo, do you know how this whole thing operates here?
Dude, stop putting me on the spot with this.
Okay. Do you want to point to somebody else that we could put on the spot?
I couldn't. What you're doing to me right now, I couldn't ever do to someone else.
Wow.
Help me out, dude. We need to say how this is happening.
I guess Patreon.
Excuse me?
Patreon?
Could you say that with conviction and love?
Patreon?
That's right, everybody. Patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. This whole thing is possible because of you. If you enjoy the show, help support the show directly and unlock beautiful benefits. Seeing you look at the camera is so weird. All right,
Everyone started staring into it, so I started staring into it, and then I'm like, this
Seems
is
like
going to
the
be a
thing to
long
do.
time of making like camera eye contact.
It's so unnerving. Thank you to some of our biggest supporters, people like I Am 8-Bit. They want everybody to know about Stray, the vinyl soundtrack to Stray. Actually, I Am 8-Bit's on the screen, so you can look away. You don't have to keep looking at the camera. They can't see you anyway.
We're just doing this for fun.
That's right. But the I Am 8-Bit exclusive edition of Stray, everybody, available on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. You can check that out. It comes with a fuzzy, petable version of the cat. That's a patch, as well as a bunch of cool concept art, fun stuff like that. So if you go to I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store, you can find that Stray vinyl soundtrack and the actual game itself, which, by the way, I finished this last weekend.
Yeah.
I felt bad about being so far behind on so many games, but like, at least I can finish Stray. I
Sure.
think I can do this.
Yeah.
So it was nice to check that off the list. I had a great time with it. Nice, simple game. Really enjoyed it. But if you go to iMape's wonderful online store, you can use the promo code Sturgeon Moon. Sturgeon Moon, everybody, for 10% off. Do you see that, Sarah?
Can you
I just
spell it?
noticed that only Leo is visible. right? Out of all of us.
Well,
Leo's, like,
I
peeking
messed
out
up.
the
I messed
side
up the
a little
layout.
bit. Oh, you messed up the layout?
I messed up the layout. I went to a new one and didn't change it. Anyways, go to my wonderful online store, Sturgeon Moon, no space, 10% off. And because they're so generous, they are giving out a prize to somebody from this very community. Whoever has the best question, submit it over there on Patreon. Because if you support us at any tier on Patreon, even that $2 tier, even just for 1 month, try it. You might like it. You can submit a question for us to read and answer on the show, and then we're going to choose our absolute #1 favorite. And that person is going to win a copy of Etherborn on Switch, the game Etherborn, thanks to iam8bit.
Do you want to all spell sturgeon? I feel like that's one of the hardest to spell words I've seen in a promo code.
Yeah. I asked him to spell it, but then he didn't,
Leo, do you
so
have
I
any
thought he just didn't
questions?
want to.
A country of origin or anything?
Sorry?
Do you have any questions like you're in a spelling bee? Or do you just want to have at it and spell it for everybody right now?
Oh, the etymology, please.
Sturgeon. Entertain them.
Like, it's like the fish.
Could you use it in a sentence?
I caught a really big sturgeon today at the lake.
Can you use a pun from Animal Crossing to describe how you caught this sturgeon?
Yes.
I don't remember what the sturgeon Animal
Like,
Crossing
oh, call
pun
me the
is.
sturgeon general.
It comes
Like a sturgeon?
It comes from
For the very first time, yeah.
comes from the Dutch word stir.
Is that
Does
what it said?
Yeah, stir and the German store. So everybody,
Sturgeon.
Oh yeah, have at it.
Sturgeon.
Yep, you did it.
No space, and then moon.
Oh.
Moon. MOON.
Hey, Leo Vader! Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey, Michael Berry submitted a question over there on Patreon. They say, Janet,
Hi.
hope your flight was pleasant.
Yeah, it's pretty good, except for the medical emergency that someone had.
But you
it
can't just drop that.
But it didn't. The plane didn't have to land, so I think they're okay.
Because they just kicked the person out.
I would hope so.
Parachute on it.
Miracle says, I love the first Risk of Rain, but when I recommend it to others, they are hesitant due to the art style. It bums me out to see people walk away from Risk of Rain without at least trying it. So I respectfully do my best to explain my passion for the gameplay loop and its phenomenal soundtrack. Mm-hmm. By the way, before we get to Michael's great question, Risk of Rain 2 is one of those games that I hear people defend the hell out of every once in a while, and I feel like it completely passed me by. Did anybody play it?
A little bit.
Okay. Is it?
Hour or two.
Did you like it?
It's all right.
So Michael Berry's just a hack and a liar, or?
If that's what you take that to mean, then
All right,
I guess so.
So Michael then asks, what game have you gone to bat for the most, hoping people would give it a chance?
Fuser.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah, you go to bat all the time. It's like
They
bat
don't
all
roast
you
you.
do.
That's my life.
Yeah. Check out Wii Sports on YouTube.
At my friend meetup, online friends came to town, got an Airbnb, hung out for a week, sold 3 copies of Drop Mix.
Mix, yeah.
That's the influencer, baby. They should
That's
be
right.
paying you.
That's right.
That's right. And that's epic money these days. I heard that the Drop Mix app was like delisted from the store or something.
Oh my God, really?
That's what I heard.
I should have told them, I guess.
I haven't looked into it, but I forget if I told you. But yeah, a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago or so at this point, I had a couple beers in me. And then I was like, you know what I'm going to do? Before it's too late, I'm going to go buy every Drop Mix pack I can get. Just so I have it ready to go, you know? And then I don't think I played with them yet. But I love knowing that I have the full set of that Harmonix Weird DJ thing. It's
Me
so
too.
fun.
Yeah. It was collecting dust for 2 years, and then it finally came out for this meetup, and God, still such a fun time.
Yeah. I genuinely was considering, like, at my wedding, having Leo just take Drop Mix out for, like, a cheap DJ. I do think it would work well. I think it would have been
love
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next time.
A lot of
Next time. Does your wife watch this episode?
No. She's upstairs. Be cool.
there would have been a lot of whiffs, a lot of confused
Right.
moments from the crowd.
But then every time it's just you can drop that ooh wah, which I don't know. Can anybody do that better?
Get him back.
It's a tough thing to do. Ooh wah. All right, that's pretty good. Somebody's played Drop Mix. Crater says, question for Janet: what is the most Minnesotan thing you've Hang on, did we answer this? Okay, you.
No, you asked Leo, and then you
mean-
just ignored the rest.
But
of
I
us.
feel like
But Leo's just so fun and charming.
Yeah.
He's the main batter, I feel. Well, you got your Final
Pinch
Fantasy
hitter.
14. That's
Yeah.
like your thing.
Is that it? Do you recommend it to people? I feel like you've never looked me in the eyes and said you need
That's
to
because
play
This
more.
is a
won't
level
like
of
it.
gaslighting that you don't need to do.
Yeah.
I played like 20 hours of it back in the day and I liked it.
That's the thing, is it's hard to recommend like an MMO to someone that you've put 800 hours in and you're like, yeah, it's really fun, when what I'm playing that's really fun is not what you will be playing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we are not playing, when you start Final Fantasy 14 and where I am right now, we are not playing the same game.
So it's just impossible to recommend then?
I mean, it's hard, right? Because you
Yeah.
have to basically say like, are you committed to getting to where I am, where it gets. I mean, it's all good, but like where it's like really fun.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
And even like at a certain point, I was like, well, I'll just watch like, because people say it's the best Final Fantasy story and stuff. It's like, I'll just watch like the story cut on YouTube, like take the cutscenes and stuff. It was like 30 hours. I was expecting like surely there's like a 7-hour version or something that I can digest, but it was like okay, even watching the YouTube highlights are incomprehensible.
Yeah, well, it crosses like the multiple expansions and like they weave it into so many. It would be impossible to just like
some YouTubers right now like weeping like I told you it was too long.
I think mine is just there's probably a lot throughout my history, but for this year it's been Nobody Saves the World, which is a game that I love so much. I love that game.
You do like that game a lot.
And I recommended it to all my friends. Everyone's like, okay, yeah, sure, that's nice. I feel like people listening to the podcast, most people are like, okay, yeah, that's nice. When it hits, it really locks in with people, is I think what's going on here. But like multiple friends, they've just bounced off so quickly. And it's like, am I nuts? What's going on? Why is this game like pure crack for me? And everyone else is like, it's interesting.
I feel like Guacamelee had people in a chokehold, and because this isn't Guacamelee, people just don't, I feel like, are not as receptive to it.
Yeah.
Is it the same company?
Yeah. Drinkbox.
Yeah. But you liked it, Janet.
Yeah, it was awesome.
All right. There we go.
I was surprised that more people weren't as hot on it as we were. Like, I emerged from like the embargo cave, and I'm like, surely we all enjoyed this at least to some degree.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were like, it didn't hit the way it needed to.
I think like Kind of Funny in particular, like they didn't like it over there, which is my
I mean, I didn't want to name names, but I don't know what y'all played because I love that game. I think it's awesome. I was actually eventually I'll post them. I was going through my phone, like cleaning out my phone while I was on the plane, like trying to delete all these pictures and videos. And I have some screenshots from that game, like that. Yeah, just to clear out my phone before I land. I still have screenshots from that game of like some of the jokes. I think the jokes are genuinely really funny. I think it's on par, if not better, than the humor they had in Guacamelee personally. But
speaking of, calling people out and Kind of Funny, let me see. I haven't.
Is this the airing of grievances?
This is the airing of grievances.
Thanksgiving's still a little ways away. I don't know if we
because
should do
I
this
have
right
not checked this out yet to see, but as we talked about last week, Snowbike Mike and the Kind of Funny community, they lost the last episode of Trivia Tower. The penalty, legally binding, was that he had to start one stream and one episode of the XCast this week, is what I said, after inhaling a big thing of helium from a balloon. Last week, he did not do it. There's no mention of it on the episode. So, okay, this is now...
There's a Nintendo Treehouse live right now?
Oh, do you want to watch that? Yeah, I think they're showing off Splatoon 3 and
Harvestella.
I do want to see Harvestella.
I'm excited for
Why do you hate Splatoon 3? That's going to be the one
we don't hate it. We're just not good at Splatoon.
That's going to be the one I have to defend.
Okay, so this is... I want to see the opening of XCast here. Let's see. And this isn't calling anybody out.
You could get good at Splatoon.
I don't want to be caught in the crossfires of this beef.
Don't you just want to see if they actually do it?
To your mic?
You don't know if what is about to happen? Okay.
You should look at the timestamps and just that'd be a faster way.
Right. No, I kind of want to just play the opening of Kind of Funny.
What in the like Discovery Channel, History Channel is this opener?
Ben did not ask me about this before.
What is going on, everybody?
He did it!
Another episode of
he
the
did
Kind
it!
of Funny XCast, your home for all things.
Yes, Snowbike Mike, thank you!
Snowbike Mike, and today I'm joined with my guy.
All right, that's awesome. All right, it'll slowly deplete. All right, I love it.
Great.
I knew that was coming and I still wasn't ready for it.
All right, that's sweet. Thank you. Kind of funny. Look at this. There doesn't need to be a war. War has been averted, everybody.
Who are you going to torment
like, my content dads are fighting.
I feel like you're tricking people onto Trivia Tower. Just to get them into some position where they have to do something.
There's going to be a Hulu documentary on the era of like Hanson's Trivia Tower reign.
Look, I'm just saying the MinnMax community is the smartest in the internet when it comes to game trivia. Like,
they're welcome to beat us.
Yeah, they're welcome to freaking try.
It is bonkers that like no one's will beat us yet.
No, I think Easy Allies, that community has a shot.
And I know we outnumber usually at least the people that
Giant
are in
Bomb,
there.
I think it was like 50-50.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Giant Bomb did pretty well.
They did all right. They did fine. And Kind of Funny, at least, Mitch on that team did a great job.
Mitch carried that whole thing.
Yeah.
It was, honestly, like, it was a great moment in sports history. Like, watching
that. It really was.
Genuinely, like, that was such a fun episode to watch. Like, obviously, like, spoilers now for, like, how it turns out and stuff. But I think even knowing that, it's still very exciting.
Yeah. So the next episode of Trivia Tower won't be a big community rivalry episode, because I think at a certain point, it's like... with so many new people flooding in, it kind of lowers your chances of winning if you're from MinnMax. So we want to have one good old-fashioned episode for this month where you can compete for prizes and stuff. And then we might have another All-Star round coming up in October.
Oh my gosh. Those are so embarrassing because it's like it's like celebrity baseball or something where it's like these people can't do this, but we should be able to do it because we like are in games. But
nobody asks me questions that I would know. No one's like in The Sims.
The thing is,
that's not true. That's not true.
Expansion
When we're on
pack.
Giant Bomb's,
it's like I'm here to
trivia
finish
show.
Saints Row, not remember what publisher did. Oh, look at this character's eyes, and then look me in the eye, and tell me what eyes you see. Can't do that.
Yeah,
I can't do
That's
it.
the normal trivia question. Look me in the eyes and tell me what eyes you see. It's like a riddle under a bridge.
That
What are you
is
talking
based
about?
on what do you call that round?
IQ.
IQ.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, but Sarah, we were on Arcade Pit at Giant
Yeah,
Bomb.
because those were games that came out in the last 10 years.
But that was it. You're like, oh, I'm going to be so bad at this. Identify the game based on
I
the
didn't
screenshot.
expect it to
And then
be
it was
games in the
like
last 10
every
years.
game that Sarah
because I know a
played.
lot about games that came out in the last 10 years
The
when
worst
I was
part
cognizant.
about Trivia Tower All Stars is having to pretend like you're thinking of something when you know you just don't know it.
Yeah.
Right.
Ben's like, listen to this song, and I'm like, I've never heard this song in my life because I mute the TV and I play Spotify.
But
when
I
I'm
mean,
playing.
unlike the podcast, like I'm not going to call anybody out. It's like, guess if you know, but I'm going to be like, Janet. Everybody else in the game industry, wait for Janet to answer. Do you know
She's
this?
in her mind palace.
At least it's over quickly because I don't make it out of the first round. So.
Yeah, it'll be a fun time. Tanner Hoisington writes in and says, "Hey, just thought I would provide context for the Gamescom discussion and say that the show has a rule that if you're not on the floor, you can't be a part of opening night live. That means no Nintendo, Sony, Square. Hang on, sorry. I'll find it, Square, and others who skipped this year. Normally, I'm critical of Jeff Keighley's show. Give more time to awards, I'm begging you. But he had that going against him. So that's an interesting detail for why there weren't bigger publishers there. Anyways, Tanner says, when you read this, I'll be at Gamescom.
Must be
Hi.
nice, Tanner.
Yeah.
Rub it in a little bit. Why
Second
don't
time
you?
since 2019 where I got to play Final Fantasy VII Remake, Luigi's Mansion 3, Roller Champions, and more. How's Roller Champions going, Leo?
I haven't played it in a bit, but I only have fun.
There we go. Same with Tanner. They say it was a ton of fun with hundreds of thousands of people at the show playing games and buying merch. Are there any chance the cohorts will ever go to Gamescom?
I know Ben.
I'd like to go. I really want to go to
Sarah,
Gamescom.
With that
for us
attitude of, I don't know,
Ben.
that's a good first note.
If y'all want us to go, I imagine we'd need quite a bit of money to
I
go.
think, wouldn't it be awesome if we were able to send everybody? That
be
would
cool.
be the ultimate Patreon
If we
goal.
can't send anybody, how do we decide it? Just a round of Uno, a round of Far Smarter Than a Fifth Grade.
I think German language trivia, like, you know,
Ooh.
what's the original word for
Shyster.
sturgeon?
Yeah.
Let's do.
Maybe have we discussed this about coordinating like Patreon goals, like the Trek to Shrek around events like that? Like if we meet this goal by this
So
event,
it'd
we can
be
go?
like a time-based thing, right?
Yeah.
Like if we don't meet it by 2 months before Gamescom, then we just wouldn't do. I'm up for it. I would like to go.
Fun idea.
I really want to go.
Yeah, I went in 2013, and it was great. And the German hotel we stayed at, like, it wasn't a very nice hotel. Sarah, where's
I
your
was
space?
in my mind, I was thinking like it would be kind of like a Patreon, and it's like support at this level if you want Janet to go, and if we raise an extra $1,000, Sarah gets to go, and it's like I hope people like me enough to pay.
Oh
so
yeah,
I
no,
can,
that'd be. We
it
can't do
feels
that.
very like Survivor-esque.
Right. And you're just like increase like
You've been
just
voted off the Gamescom team, Sarah.
Well, it'd be fun to be like, yeah, how interesting could it be? Like, who is the top of that pile? Like, it'd be the strangest person to go to Germany. Like, let's send best friend Ronnie to Gamescom, like at the highest level. It's like, what?
We
Anyways,
send one person, but we hold up an iPad with the rest of us
Yeah.
on it.
yeah.
Right.
We get one of those robots that drives around, and we just fight for control.
That seems all right. Anyways, the German hotel I went to, they gave me gummy bears every morning. Like, it was just like waiting for you every morning outside your doors.
One gummy bear, or like several.
One German gummy bear, which is the size of
single
like
bear.
thousands of American gummy bears.
And
I think.
alive.
That's
Oh,
right.
okay.
But it was super fun. So I would love to go there, or like even like TGS. I think with COVID, traveling and conventions, it's always a little bit hairy. But hopefully, as that continues to dwindle, it'd be fun to line more travel up and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see. Spencer Jensen writes in and says, "Hello, MinnMax. How bad does it suck to talk about how a game sucked in front of the internet? The elephant in the room being Saints Row.
It's okay.
Really?
Yeah, I think the part that's like lightly stressful is kind of like to Leo's point of wanting to be truly honest while also trying to like maintain the respect for the people that worked on it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it is inherently like, I think you definitely could make the argument that like it's disrespecting their work, but like ultimately my job as a critic is to analyze like the game and the product
Right.
with no attachments or associations with the people involved. And that's why like when you are, I'm dating someone that worked in the game. You usually excuse yourself from those things. Well, like, I don't know everyone's life. Maybe some people don't, but like you would be expected to have that because there is that separation. And it does suck when it's like you talk to them and they seemed cool and you like the idea, and then it's like, it didn't hit. Like, I remember that happened for me to a degree with like Sea of Solitude, where I was very excited for that game. I interviewed the developer, and then I gave that game like a 6, which isn't like an awful score, but it's not probably the score they were hoping for. But that is what it is. Like, that's the job. And I think, I think that's the biggest challenge. That's what I care about more than anything. But like, that just comes with the terrain.
Yeah,
like,
it helps to be like an emotional robot. I recommend it to a lot of other people because
you got to be able to detach to a degree, and if you can't, like, there's other ways to be involved that don't involve hurting people's feelings. But
that's the same for working on a game, right? Like, you work so hard on a game, you release it, and then maybe it's not hitting like how you want it to hit.
Right.
Even though you put a lot of effort into it, like, you have to know that at the end of the day, it's like you weren't, you didn't have total control over everything.
Did you have that experience?
All the time. Like,
Really?
so many games, like, you release them and they just kind of like drift off into the ether and
Like
never
Uno
get
and Far
picked
Cry
up
6?
again. Okay. Wait, do you want...
No, but like, I don't know. Like, what was like
that
the
should be a
biggest
new
game that
show
you
plus
felt
option. Play in Far Cry 6.
Give Mattel money. What about like Xenoblade Chronicles X? Like, were you proud of that when that launched on the Wii U? Like, did you get to feel that?
I'm proud of like every game that I've launched, but it's like, a lot of games don't get the hype that, people are always like, oh, it's so sad this didn't get hype. But there's a lot of games that don't get hype. Like, a lot. Like, so many games are released in a month that just go completely under the radar.
And I was just thinking about Curse to Golf, which is a game where it's like, I think the developer, right?
Liam.
And like, it seemed cool. Like, they had a decent rollout.
They had a
like
really
IGN
big
was,
rollout marketing. They were in everything.
And it just released last week.
Well, they came out at the same time as another game that was getting a lot of coverage. Oh, Cult of the Lamb.
Right.
Oh,
So it's like, well, we can only have one indie darling, and it's like sometimes it's just bad luck. But
you're right.
when you get that kind of criticism, when people don't like your game, you kind of just have to move on, because at the end of the day, it is your job to make a game.
Yeah.
It's not your job to make people like it. So you kind of just have to take it, and then you're like, whatever, we'll just do it. Like, we'll take the learnings from this and like make another game.
Yeah. Real quick, I played like 40 minutes of Curse to Golf. I'm like, I like it. 2D, simple golf game.
Yeah.
Some fun twist and all that
It
stuff.
got pretty good scores, right?
Yeah,
like
it
in
did
the
all right,
80s in Metacritic.
Yeah. I always think of this heartbreaking moment in Double Fine Adventure, the greatest video game documentary of all time. I think I have a poster about it right there that nobody off camera can see. But there's this moment where they are working for years on Broken Age, and it ballooned up, and it's like, oh, this is so much bigger, more expensive. This is dangerous for the studio. Is Double Fine going to collapse? All this fun stuff. And then they finally get to the finish line and they launch it. And it's about what you'd expect for the launch of Broken Age, where some people are like, it's all right. If you like throwback adventure games, sure. And they're all just like absorbing the feedback and talking about the sales and how it's not really lighting the world on fire. And there's this moment where I think it's like a programmer in a group meeting. He's like, can we just like launch it again? It's like this feeling of it's just the saddest moment of just like, it feels like we need to like have some celebration, and this isn't it. Like, what do we do? Is there any avenue here? It's such a bummer.
I feel like it aged pretty well, though. I mean, I feel like people still talk about that game.
Yeah. People are nostalgic about
there's
a lot of adventure games.
Like merch for it and stuff. Like, I don't know. I mean, I can imagine that's really frustrating to do. Like, I don't create things in that way. Like, the stuff I create is like different. So I don't know how, the struggles that like, Sarah, you were able to like speak to.
Yeah.
I think from an audience perspective, it's a little bit of a bummer to talk about a game being bad in the sense of like, it's inherently negative. So it's like, well, you're going to hear us just drag something for a while. But like, that's the job sometimes. Like, sometimes the job is like, you end up being really hot on something and you're really excited. Sometimes you're not. Like, you're here to just kind of give your report, and you don't have any control over whether that's going to be like good or bad.
Right.
I think the rule of thumb in talking about games and other things negatively is, for me, is like, imagine they were listening. Like, how do you convey it constructively? And I don't always live by that. Like, I know in the past I said some remarks about GTA Online. That's not who I am anymore.
Yeah. Leslie Benzies, please give us a 5-star review. That's interesting.
Helps the show.
Not in a way of like,
I agree with that a little bit.
Yeah, like holding your
to like
tongue.
a light degree.
But I think it just elevates just that, having the perception is like, okay, I'm not just going to say, this is dumb, Dan Reichert, Red Dead Redemption 2, worst game ever. It just lets you explain yourself a little bit more that's constructive for everybody, instead of like, it's not out of fear of the developer. It's just, there's a better way to talk about this critically. I always think of the Jeff Cork old axiom where, when he's playing a game that he doesn't like for review or something at Game Informer, and I think there's some game where it's like, I knew about like the production. I was like, oh, like their budget, I guess, wasn't that big and all this stuff. And he always had the thing of, not my problem. Like,
Yeah,
everything behind the
God,
curtain, not my problem.
Again,
Yeah.
I think I definitely have the reputation of being like kind of mean for some people, which we can debate on why that is. But I think that's definitely something that I like push back on a lot too, where at the end of the day, like my job's not to contextualize why I think this failed or didn't fail or succeeded.
Yeah.
Is your game good? There have been games made by one person that are better than games made by hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And it's my job and my like what I do is about, is the game good, and talking about the game.
Yeah.
I don't, like your sad story about whatever. I don't care. That's not on me. That has nothing to do with the game. Like, but it's like telling a really important message. It's not a good game.
Yeah,
So
people are spending money on this.
we can get like good messages from you can be a good game and send a good message, but maybe you didn't. So that's like that's where it's at.
And I think, especially like podcasting, I always just think like, there's always an avenue, We used to say every game is interesting, and I do think that's true, where it's like, we are OFK. I did not enjoy playing that game. But at the same time, it's like, I think that's a really interesting project, and that's something I can contribute to the discussions of just saying, that dialogue was annoying. Moving on.
Yeah, I was excited to talk about Saints Row.
Right,
But
right.
not really liking it.
Yep,
It's fun to dig into
for sure.
there.
John writes in and says, hello, Hanson, insert nickname, then immediately shrug it off. Okay. I was scrolling through the infinite credits of a game, listening to the party chat discussion on the unfortunate new Saints Row. It got me wondering, do we not give enough credit to games that are solid? Step back. The credits I was watching as I was listening was for Far Cry 6. To be fair, you're all pretty positive on the game in the podcast, but in general...
I cannot escape.
You can't escape Far Cry 6. But in general, should a technical game series that keeps nailing it mechanically receive more praise and attention? Is it harder than we think to pull this off?
It's definitely harder than we think to pull this off. It's harder to make a game than like I constantly am reminding myself that making a game is really hard, and I still have no perception on how hard it is. That even came up in Gamescom, where one of the developers was like, I knew it'd be hard, and I had no idea how hard it would be to actually do this. But in this context, I would answer no. Like I think or at least I feel like I rated Far Cry properly. That's kind of very much like a 7 game to me.
Sure.
And funny enough, when I was playing Saints Row, it was a reminder that like, wow, Far Cry's a lot better than this.
Sure.
And I was like, it kind of made me appreciate Far Cry more, but it doesn't make me change my overall take or score of Far Cry personally. But it contextualized, like, there are levels to this. There are like levels to gunplay, levels to set pieces, levels to like world design that this is on a different level, and it's a lower one.
Yeah, I like that question of like, we just take it for granted that, all right, Far Cry 5 to Far Cry 6, all right, it's solid, moving on. But it's like, that's still a monumental effort, even if it's a bulk of the team moving on and the tools moving on and all that stuff. It is a little bit of a miracle that it came out and it's like, that's solid.
It's tough, though, because there's nothing dishonest about it. It's like you play a game and it's either invigorates you or doesn't. And it's weird to, I don't know, it feels obligatory to talk about things that technically did well when it didn't make you happy at any point.
Yeah. Invigorates and obligatory. Way to go, Leo. Someone's going to do well with that spelling bee. Muffin Crumbs writes in and says, hey, peeps. Last week, Ben was talking about how he was watching a movie where they mentioned Minneapolis being called the Minneapple. That's right. That's young adults.
Who did that?
Is it called that?
Yeah. Diablo Cody did that. Have you heard you've been wandering around Minneapolis for a day now. Have you heard anybody say Minneapple?
No.
Exactly. It got me thinking, what other movie theater moments have you had where the state or city you live in is mentioned in the movie? I remember being in the theater watching I Am Legend. When the woman mentions going to Vermont because they heard it was a safe haven, our theater burst into applause.
Yeah. Vermont!
Yeah, we did it.
All 8 people in the Vermont theater.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do you remember that 2012 movie, like the End of the World movie?
Yeah, the one, was that the one with snow? Or
Yeah, there was a bunch of snow.
John
At the
Cusack.
very end of the movie, like after everything's just gone out the window, like people are dead, most of the U.S. is like in winter, the guy gets a call and he's like, I just got a call from my grandma in Wisconsin and she wants to know what's going on. So the only people that survived was like a very small portion of Wisconsin. And I was in Wisconsin and we were like, we lived, we're alive.
You became feral, ripping up the theater seats.
Well, she's like, it's like my grandma wants to know why it's more snowy than usual. And I was like, we survive.
I love it. Yeah, I remember in the first Pokemon movie, which I was very excited to go to the theaters for and get like that special
They mentioned
Mew.
Minnesota?
Yeah, in
No,
the
they
first
didn't.
Pokemon movie,
No, they didn't.
They talk about Vikings because I think like Team Rocket's like rowing a boat or something, and they're like, "Oh, we're like the Vikings," and someone's like, "I thought they were just in Minnesota," and the
Heck yeah.
theater.
They did?
Yeah.
I'm going to need a clip of that.
Yep, it totally
That
happened.
does seem like that'd be very exciting.
Oh, especially like our
So
boys,
does this mean that
Team Rocket out there?
Minnesota canonically exists in the Pokemon world?
I heard it's going to be the next region. There's just
Oh my God.
Minnesota.
It'll be like Minnesota's one game, Wisconsin's the other game,
Right,
and then
well,
the one
keep
nobody
dreaming,
wants
keep
is like
dreaming.
Iowa.
How dare you?
I really wanted you to be like, that time Mewtwo was like Minnesota, am I right?
He looked at the camera, yeah.
That's where I'm retiring.
Yeah.
No, I remember in Juno, I remember watching that movie. It's always Diablo Cody because she's from Minnesota, you know? By the way, I really want to interview Diablo Cody. If you're watching this, Diablo Cody, I'd love to interview about Diablo 4. But we're watching Juno, and we're in St. Cloud, Minnesota. At a certain point, they mentioned St. Cloud, Minnesota, because Juno supposedly takes place in Minnesota. And yeah, the theater lost its freaking mind. That was so exciting to be like in a medium-sized town. It's like, oh my God, Leah, we exist.
That's
We
awesome.
Yeah.
What's this email about? The Diablo Cody movie, the young adult?
Young adult?
Young adult, yeah. My uncle used to live in that very same building
What?
that they shot the intro
Really?
in. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Also, obviously, Fargo, big moment. You got the 35W driving
Yes.
Minneapolis skyline. Experience that all the time.
Yep, absolutely.
Janet got to see that, and we said, this is what people will show you when they mention Minneapolis. This
Yeah.
is what you will see.
We should have just given you like the
Gaze
Coen
upon
Brothers
it.
tour of like, oh, a serious man. Here's like the cafe that they go to in a serious man.
I saw them shoot a serious man.
Shut up.
Once, the scene at the pool.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We were there for that, just peeking through the fence.
I remember seeing you in the film. It kind of took me out,
Hanging
actually, now
off
that
the
I think
fence.
about it. Yeah. You want to hear something really dorky?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember.
As opposed to everything else we've talked about. on the
Yeah,
show.
all these other really cool things. I'm trying to remember
Skip to
if it
this
was
time code.
Juno or Young Adult, but I used to work at the Minnesota Film and Television Board and an internship there. And part of my duties is like I would like read scripts and like summarize them for people. Like here's the shooting locations, yada yada yada. I think it was just like intern busy work, but I got to read the script for A Serious Man like before anybody knew anything about it, which was a real thrill as a huge Coen Brothers fan. But then the other cool thing was they had in like their big filing cabinet. Yeah, I'm telling tales at a school here, but they had like printed out emails from Diablo Cody where they were going on location scouts for, I think it was Juno. And they had like an archive of the record of like Diablo Cody in these emails, like really wanting to film in Minnesota because the movie's all about being in Minnesota and Juno, you know, all that stuff. But they ended up shooting it in Canada or whatever. And
Boo.
so I got to read like this whole discussion of her being like, I'm really pushing for it, but the producers don't want to do it in Minnesota, but I'm trying
They
so
just let you
hard.
look through all that? That seems incredibly NDA.
It's what? It's not, you know, secret government files in Mar-a-Lago. It's just, I guess, a filing cabinet. Have at it. I was an intern.
Have at
We
it.
trust interns, I think. Beefcake writes in and says, hey, what little thing is just the best?
Hot clothes from the dryer.
Hot clothes
Oh.
from
The
the
first thing I thought of
dryer.
in the
Yeah.
car here with Sarah.
When we were doing our questions on the way here
Yeah.
as we drove over, Janet was
Oh.
giving thumbs for me while I drove.
Yeah, that's great. I was very confused about the different thumb strategy, but I think
Yep,
that's
yep.
a good system. Yeah. Is it offensive to say Janet?
Because
some
she's
small?
short?
Because I realized she's
Look,
short.
half the people here are really short.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah.
you're right. You're right.
True.
Leo, name a thing that's just the best.
A little thing.
Yeah.
My little cat.
Oh, our hearts are melting.
I do like that cat.
It is a good cat.
The stray cat.
Jai Bones writes in and says, hey, cohorts, simple question. What is the bottom and what is the top of a whisk?
Oh.
I think the bottom is like the whiskey part and the top is the handle.
I think you're right.
Wow, I thought opposite.
What's
That's, I don't like that.
So you think that you
Sorry.
put the top into the thing?
I don't know why.
That
when you're,
but
when,
yeah.
you're, when you're
I've-
whisking, you go, this is the bottom, this is the top.
So you're holding
I
the
don't.
bottom.
I've never gone like that before.
Well,
no, but as it
For a
hits
knife,
my
though,
mind,
the bottom of the knife is the handle.
Because
right.
you can,
Oh,
you
that's
hold,
true.
you can,
But you can move it in
you
more
can
ways.
move the knife for like on the plane of existence for a whisk.
It's also usually
in
parallel.
order to
a knife.
operate it, it needs to, the whisk part needs to be
Yeah.
toward the earth more.
no, that makes perfect sense. I just don't want to be dishonest about what I thought with you guys.
If
is
everybody
deeply
could
upsetting.
really
You're
do is-
brave for trusting us with this information.
It's all I ask everybody is, could you please leave us a review on iTunes or your favorite podcast app, and just the only quote, it just says, on the plane of existence for a whisk. It's just all I want. Also, they ask about a shovel. I feel
Same
like
deal.
Please stop. Same
Yeah.
deal, please.
Yeah.
Leo?
Well,
Same deal for me.
I feel
Okay.
like you can't hold it and like whack people with it. Well,
That's
you wouldn't do
typically
that
how I
with
use
a
it.
whisk. Yeah, you hit them, you bury the body with the top part of it.
Do you know how hard it is to dig a
maybe
hole
the-
deep enough for a body?
It's probably
It
pretty
seems
hard.
really difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder than they make it. Like,
Holes.
I've never
explores
killed
Yeah.
someone, But I
Is it like a
certainly
grave digger
won't, knowing
game
how
too,
hard it
or-
is to dig a hole.
Yeah, that's why, like, and I think was a Goodfellas. You're gonna dig the hole. Fine, I'll
Right.
dig the hole.
Yep,
I don't.
it's a challenge.
You gotta watch Goodfellas.
Sarah, you gotta watch Goodfellas.
I think we should put everything that I have to do on a
Sarah
wheel.
watches Goodfellas.
Yes.
And then we spin the wheel on
Okay.
the podcast, and then I have to do whatever it lands on because this list is getting really long.
Yeah.
Right.
But we need like
Don't
a small
go to
sliver of like Ben
Gamescom.
pays us $10,000 just to make it spicy. You know?
That's a good
Right.
New Show Plus option.
Yes.
Yeah. Drake Heinhorst writes in and says, there are two types of people. People who spent their time playing the fun games at Chuck E. Cheese and people who played the boring games that gave out the most tickets. Which are you?
Oh. I feel like that's both though.
But
Like,
I liked
you
the
play both.
boring games were a lot easier to win. Like I was really good at the game where you had to step on the spiders.
Oh, okay. And they would just crank out the tickets?
Yeah.
I feel like you gotta play both a little bit.
Yeah, because I mean,
I
like you
split
don't
'em down
really
the
get
middle.
you don't really get tickets from like the arcade games.
Do they still do
Plus the
that?
tickets don't lead to anything anyway. It's like, well, I'm gonna get.
No, the prizes are terrible.
I'm gonna get like what is it, like a Laffy Taffy or something
Yeah,
off
Tootsie
these.
Roll.
Yeah.
Or I gotta hold the tickets for my whole life.
There might be like a sticky grab hand if you're lucky.
But I will say, having not been fully developed as a person, I probably was a boring tickets guy, as much as I am a fun game guy now.
Right. Is it too much to ask? I'd buy a PS5 Pro if, like, instead of an achievement, I don't want any of that. I just want those tickets to come
trophy,
out the
excuse me.
front.
I would actually
Yeah.
do the trophies
what the disc drive
if
is
it
for.
got me tickets.
Right.
Like
yes,
I would actually,
yes.
if it like spit out a ton, because like as a kid,
That's
did you ever
the-
try to like just get as many as you could and
the
hold it
best.
in your hands, and they
And it
would
would just keep coming?
going and going and going.
They don't really do tickets anymore at a lot of places though. It's
Probably
just like
not.
It's
On a
probably like
card?
a little card.
Yeah, it's on the little card.
God,
The
society
card is
falling
easier
apart.
though to like, you have all the
But
tickets
I
on
liked
there.
the visual of my tickets, like being able to hold all of them
It
in
is
my
fun.
hands.
Yeah.
I
and when
felt
you
rich.
snap and they all like keep coming out.
yeah, you're
Okay,
like,
what do you just rank these childhood pleasures, Sarah? Snow day at school or
Ooh.
tickets pouring out of a machine and it just keeps going when you think it's going to stop?
But it's got to be the snow day. Like the
Snow day,
idea
yeah.
that like
Did
you
you guys
can
even
play.
really get snow days? Because we always had to go. It would be like
We had a
half
good
the
amount
class
of
is
snow day.
missing, and they're like, "We're still here." And
We
I'm
basically
like,
just didn't go to school in the winter.
Yeah.
We definitely had a few a
"Yeah,
year
no."
growing up, and it
F
was.
you guys. I had like one my whole life.
Oh,
I'm
man.
sorry to hear that.
One time we had a too cold day. That's how cold
We
it was.
had that too. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how cold it
The
was.
wind chill day. Like you'll go outside, you'll
You
die.
came to the wrong place to
CPS
brag
does
about how
not
cold
care.
Chicago was. By the way, doing it.
Look it up. I guarantee you, y'all
Look it
are getting
up.
way more snow days than we are. We
Yeah,
don't
but
get
is
any
it
snow
because
days.
there's more snow here?
I think
Because
I think
Chicago
CPS
has-
just doesn't care about its
Chicago
kids.
has that
I'm just
whole,
gonna
like,
go,
lake.
go out there
Wow.
and say that.
Lake effect.
As someone that went through CPS and worked for CPS, I think CPS just did not care.
I just want to say the thrill of thinking you're gonna have to go to school and then not having to go to school. That's
That's
like
like-
you can't
but-
compare
oh,
that
the
to
pain,
anything.
though.
That's
No.
the most joy of life.
Like,
That's the only time
Sometimes
I
I
go to
wouldn't do my
news as a
homework.
kid, you know.
Oh, and you'd like
I would
the Hail
leave
Mary.
it up to chance, and I'd be like, nah, that's a snow day tomorrow. The feeling of having to go to school when you thought you were going to get to stay home,
Yeah.
devastating.
But
Yeah.
that
Catholic
feeling
schools
too.
always got off though.
Oh, really?
Catholic schools always were like for like I'd go on the news for like, okay, surely today's got to be the day. And you see that little like ticker of the names. It was never Gonzales Academy.
They had a whole
Ever.
Bible to get through. They should be there more than anybody else.
They take it as a sign.
It was always
Sure, yeah.
it was the worst feeling though in the world when you're watching like the ticker go on the bottom and it's
and
listing
it's just not your
just
school.
every area around you and not you. And it's like, give me the. Is it the principal making that call? Give me their freaking home phone number.
It was always dumb too because like there would literally be days where half the class is missing, so we didn't actually learn anything that day because they couldn't do it. Now I will say I imagine part of that decision went into like there definitely is like that vein of thought of school is a place for like kind of free childcare, right? Like a lot of people work and they can't like handle
Right.
taking off or they don't have the resources to do that. So that's maybe the light like part where I can see it, but just ultimately it sucks. We always had to go. It was awful.
Cade Mead writes in and says, "Hey, Shrek Trekkers, that's us. Tune in on Twitch. I'm going back to school for the first time in over 10 years and have been having a blast. I'm actively participating in class, starting conversations with strangers, and initiating family/friend stuff rather than waiting to hear from them." So hang on. So it's just like
Is this a
propelled you
question?
Just like a
socially
better
outside?
person. They just wanted to brag a little bit.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Hang on. I need a sincere congratulations from you.
Congratulations. I can't do it. Congratulations.
No.
Worse
That's how
yet.
you
Congratulations. Oh my God,
What's
congratulations.
wrong with you? Anyways, Cade says this is all stuff that used to absolutely horrify me. So my question is, does getting older make you bolder?
Oh.
Yes.
I think that's yes.
I
Yes.
constantly think about like I wish I could go back in time as my current personality
Yes.
and just like rip some people to shreds like
Oh.
over things.
Oh, it's a vengeance path? I wasn't going that
Because
route.
I'm like, why was I okay with this? I would never like do this as
Yeah.
like my current age.
So is
Yeah.
the boldness would let you stand up for yourself.
Yeah,
more.
I feel like I like was, believe it or not, a lot quieter as a kid, but like a lot. As my
You
brother
have to-
calls the good old days, back before I talked a lot.
You have to really know what you deserve before you can have the confidence to ask for it.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
that's
the boldness
beautiful.
route.
You often have like these really like articulate like hallmark moments.
Yeah.
You really
I
elevate.
go to therapy.
You really elevate the whole show, and that's good because I don't go to therapy, so I can just
Oh.
get secondhand therapy.
I got you,
know.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that's the way it works.
they only cover so much, I have to make a call.
Yeah, I think about this. I love
You
that
want
you're
teeth? You want therapy?
right. I love that
I'm
kids
neither,
doing
but
this because
still.
I dream of that idea of like going back to school and just like really getting the most out of it. Because I think it was like, especially in college, I was just like peak anxiety. It's like I'm gonna keep my head down. I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna not engage at all because I don't think I'm physically capable of speaking. I'm so anxious. And then I would just get A's and A minuses and was like, all right, well that was easy.
Humble
I didn't have
brag.
to do much, right? I'm kind of an A minus in college kind of guy.
Congratulations.
Yeah, look at him now.
But yeah, I just think of like, God, if I was in class again, I would be raising my hand all the time, and be like, this doesn't make
But
sense.
why?
I'm
Like you
confused
still
about
got
this.
A's.
Because it's
What's the
about
point?
the experience of learning and engaging. I feel like it was so much more rewarding if you're actually engaging with the material. Because like it was, my major was like studies in cinema and media culture. It's just nonsense. None of it made any sense. It was nonsense.
I
still
did
got A's
so
and
bad in
minuses.
that film class that I took.
Yeah.
I got like it was like my only C in college, I think.
Oh.
Like I could not analyze film at all. Didn't know what I was looking at.
To see the film again. And so, yeah, it was just like skating under the radar. But now I just want to go back and be like, this Walter Benjamin character, I don't think what he's saying is making much sense. I don't think these books mean anything that you keep having us read. I think it's just a bunch of
So you want
nonsense.
to antagonize the teacher?
Yeah, I want to call him out and be like, explain this
over
to me.
such subjective
If you can,
media?
if you cannot explain what this
I
person is
need
trying
you to
to get
actually tell me what the green light at the end of the Doc and Great Gatsby means because I think it's just a
Right.
green light.
at. Right, yeah.
I think it means go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or does it? Maybe he should have stopped going with head. I don't know. Because, like, I'm always down for a Great Gatsby analysis. My
Yeah.
favorite book.
Okay, deepest dive.
Yeah.
Is it your
Deepest Dive?
favorite?
Deepest Dive?
Oh, Deepest Dive, Great Gatsby. We read the book. We watch some of the movies.
I
I hear
watched
the old school one is the best one.
I watched the first half of the new one.
The DiCaprio one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Pretty nuts.
I taught only for a year, like a full
Straight
year.
up bonkers.
I like taught a little bit, and then I got like laid off from that job, and then I like did other stuff. Then I had a full year of teaching, so I didn't teach for very long. But I had like a great group of students. Like the school I worked for was really awesome, which is also why I knew I was like, this isn't for me because this is like the best conditions, and I'm like, I still want to do game stuff.
Right.
But I got to teach Great Gatsby, which was awesome because I love that book. And as you know, the classic English teacher treat, I'm like, when we're done with all this, we'll watch the movie. So we watched the DiCaprio one. And when they had the scene, spoilers for Great Gatsby, when they have the scene where like you meet him and like in the book and in the movie, it's like, oh, I heard this thing, I heard this, that, and the other. And then Nick Carraway is just like, oh man, I'm talking to Gatsby. I had no idea. And like when he turns around in the movie and he's like, I'm Gatsby. My kids, my nerdy freaking kids, cheered when that happened. And I was like, oh, such a good group of kids here. Like, you guys are such dorks. That's like the dorkiest thing I've ever seen, I think, to this day. Next to them, watching them play Super Mario 3D World for one of our like school like seminar activities.
That does sound good.
Yeah, it was amazing. I have a
That's
clip
a
of it
beautiful
that's
moment.
like one of my favorite gaming moments of them just shouting at each other about it.
God.
Luigi, no, Luigi. Like, it's so funny.
That's kind of all that teachers want is they want their kids to get dorkier in class. Like, could you just be a little dorkier, please?
Oh, God.
It makes it less awkward. I'm like, I mean, otherwise I'm just talking to myself. So it's like,
Cyber writes in and says, hey, MinnMax, last week somebody was asking about the gaming equivalent to a weekly sitcom. It got me thinking. Releasing weekly content from a studio is super hard, but big modding communities can collectively release new major content on a weekly basis. I've seen it in Minecraft, Gary's Mod, RimWorld, and many other popular sandbox games. Are modding communities secretly the key to infinite content?
It helps.
Certainly helps. Like,
Yeah.
What games do you really see that pop in?
I mean, obviously, your Skyrims,
Well, sure.
your Fallouts.
Yeah.
the major food groups.
Yeah. I don't know. So seeing Cyberpunk mods made me almost want to go back to that.
Interesting. Yeah, I am. Donkey's new video was showing off Rivals of Aether, which is a game I checked out right when it launched. You know, it's kind of like a Smash clone, platform fighter, I guess you should say. And that new Donkey video is like, what is this? What is happening in this world? Because it's just showing off like what the mod community has done to that game, where they've put in just every single character from any fiction anywhere, just like regardless of copyright, and just like I need to go back to Rivals of Aether now so I can play as Jerry Seinfeld versus I don't know, Galactus. It's just absurd.
Especially now that that's bannable in multiverses.
Oh,
It
really?
had a thriving mod scene for the first month or two of its existence, and now you get banned.
I feel like that should be the secret for that Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. It's just like, hey, by the way, open the door to mods, have at it. Like, that's the only way they can hope to defeat multiverses, which I think is their goal.
Yeah. I will say for weekly content, I'm really pleased to announce I found a way to make this about Hitman.
Oh,
Nice.
There's monthly roadmaps for that, and it's like this date of the month, it's going to be an elusive target or a reran old one, or just featured contracts, which is kind of modding, I guess, but community-made contracts that are of a certain theme bundled together. And there's like, 4 or 5 small content drops like that a month. And if it was like, an MMO and people are trying to play it as their only game, like people are getting frustrated with that. But for me, who's casually dropping in once or twice a week, it's just the perfect amount. It reminds me of that weekly sitcom thing of like, especially because it's so systemic and so much funny stuff comes out of it.
Yeah.
It's just like, here's a new excuse every week to go
How
back
many
to.
hours of Hitman 3 are you playing a week then?
In a week, 5 or 6.
That's pretty
impressive.
substantial.
That's impressive.
I'm excited to talk about it at the end of the year because since January I've
It's
been
gonna be one
playing
of
it
your
every
top
single
10
week.
games of the year.
It's gonna be my number one.
Oh my gosh. This is like, what was your number one last year?
Riders Republic.
Yeah.
Hitman 3 was my number 2. I didn't fully engage with it, and now that I have,
This is it.
and we wait for that freelancer mode because it's coming for our top 10.
I did think
Ooh,
of,
that's the one that's like the roguelike?
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought of you and /Hitman, which when I think of Hitman, I think of Leo and vice versa.
I'm touched.
Because I went to Napa and we toured some wineries, and I was like, which also like I realized that I'm so engrossed in games that I just see games everywhere, and you can't take me anywhere. I'm like, it's just like the vineyards
that's
and Hitman.
so funny you say that because not a month ago, Marie and I were talking about that. Like, would you ever go to a vineyard? And I was like, I want to prepare you right now, even though we haven't locked anything in. Every step of the way, I'm going to point at something and say that's just like from Hitman.
Yeah. I thought about pushing someone into the Grape Crusher. I really did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I went to Osaka with Jeff Cork, it was just nonstop. In Yakuza, this thing's over here. In Yakuza, I was like, okay, but like I hadn't played Yakuza at the time, so it was annoying. But
Have you yet?
I've only played Like a Dragon,
Okay.
but
No
I
spoilers.
loved it so much.
I'm playing it now.
It's good, right?
No
Yeah.
spoilers because I'm only on Yakuza 5.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's really good.
Leo, did you end up keep playing that?
I'm still playing it also a few times a week. I
Okay.
adore Like a Dragon. It's my favorite of the series.
It'd be cool if you two finished at the same time and we did like a max spoilers.
Where
Like a
are you?
Dragon.
Like what chapter? are you
Chapter 11. I'm
at?
taking
you're
my sweet
really
time.
far into compared to me. I'm on chapter
Oh.
like 6.
Okay.
Like mid. I just did like one of the dungeons, like the underground one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Matt Parser writes in and says, missed joke opportunity. Ben Hansen was talking about Game Freak on the podcast, and he likes them to branch out and do more. He likes them to branch out more. And shockingly, he didn't say, I like it when Game Freak gets freaky.
Yeah.
How could you let this happen, Ben? I trusted you. The team trusted you, and you let us all down. Did you think that too, Leo?
Yes. Shame on you.
I'm sorry.
Shame on you.
Okay. Matt Rogers says, not technically a missed joke opportunity, but Hansen's, the Emerald City, in response to Kelsey mentioning a convention in Seattle, did not get the attention or laugh it deserved. Let's call it a missed laugh opportunity.
Yeah, we should.
No
have
one
one of
wants to
those.
miss the laugh, guy. Like I noticed you didn't laugh at my joke.
Yeah, but now we have the community write in on our behalf because of that, which is
You
very
can pretend
satisfying.
the community's
Ben's
right
This
now.
seems more like, Ben writing in. Like, I noticed that nobody laughed at my jokes.
Sometimes there isn't-
Signed anonymous.
No, Matt
Sometimes
Rogers
there
is a real
isn't.
person.
Yeah.
I think they're
Sounds
real.
Like a very
Sometimes
real
there
name.
isn't always time, or you're in the middle of telling like a story and you don't want to necessarily stop to acknowledge it.
Right.
And you know what? Sometimes when only the few listeners notice it, that's a special moment for them.
That's it. It's a special little wink at you.
Yeah, exactly.
Audio-wise.
It
Yeah.
was for them.
That's right. Jared Pierce writes in and says, hello, Min and or Max. Yeah, we haven't figured that out yet. If all human life, other than you, ceased to exist,
Yes.
and you were forced to live within the borders of one country for the rest of your life, based solely on the landscape, where would you go? Okay, thanks, goodbye.
I can finally comfortably drive.
Country?
Well, sort of. I guess you can still kill yourself without like running into someone.
And it might be a bunch of parked cars left on the highway, depending on what happens.
Oh, that could get
Oh,
tricky.
man.
Yeah, it might be a
that LA
rapture
traffic,
situation.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, permanent.
I do like this idea because, like, not which
Just
country.
slowly drive them off to the side.
Because, like, all culture
motorcycle.
is
Get in each
basically
one
gone.
and pull it
Yeah.
back.
I guess just the U.S. I mean, it's a boring answer, but it's the one I know the most. / like, yeah.
It's got the variety.
Yeah. Japan, I would like to drive myself around on the trains, you know?
Real life Densha to go. You're like, choo choo.
Yeah,
I mean,
I get to say choo-choo.
Somehow you would kill yourself on a bullet train. Like, I don't know how. It's not like you could, like, fall off the tracks.
Well,
but
can
I
you
just
read
know.
the stuff in the... Because now I'm thinking of, what was that movie that just
Google
came out?
Translate.
It's incredibly difficult.
Well, but it's called Bullet Train, right? What's the name of that
Yeah,
movie? That just,
Bullet
yeah.
Train,
Bullet train.
Yeah, like, that's like... I thought of that from having just watched that movie. I don't want to get into too much detail in case people want to
Japan
watch
just
it.
seems like it would be a little small, and I would worry
Yeah.
about is the climate change, like, is it going to go under the water at some point?
And
like,
you know, I really didn't think through having everything be in a different language.
But it's not like some of that doesn't matter as much because like there's no one else there.
he'll go to
Right.
eat something.
So like,
and he'll
oh
be
no,
like,
this store is closed.
oh,
Like,
it
you know?
doesn't say rat poison or something.
Yeah, but I do
Yeah.
think that I don't know. But you have the time, right? Like to learn.
Yeah,
This
you
is
could find a
learn.
book.
better late than never. So in the
guess so.
afterlife, you can converse with more people.
And it's like, yeah,
new
I
friends.
don't know, like, yeah, at a certain point, if you're just roaming this country, would you be like, I'm craving a desert? Well, I wish I chose a country with a desert. I feel like, I don't think I would ever crave that much variety. I feel like you can get enough no matter which country you're going
You
in.
want a nice climate. You want pools to be around.
Pools
Who's
and a nice
cleaning
climate.
the pool? Who's
Good
cleaning
point.
it?
Good point.
I think,
Well, I mean, there's a lot of challenges we'd have in this post-apocalyptic world. I can speak, but yeah, I think U.S. pretty good. Plus, also,
U.S., but it's so.
am I
it's
stuck in
kinda
that country or
boring.
can I be in like the continent at all? It's just the country.
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 I think yeah,
Janet.
the U.S. Because
The
like
borders
other,
are real.
Other places, yeah. These. It's also I think somewhat easier to like navigate. Like I think about like Mexico's really cool, but some of that terrain is like brutal to drive through.
Yeah. That.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dumb stuff.
Canada would be good.
You said
That's
don't
pretty
bang on the
place.
table.
You can if you're chanting dumb stuff. That's the one exception.
I
to
wish
a
I
don't
knew this,
bang on
but
the
start the
table.
episode over.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. Canada's the answer. All right. What do y'all like for a question of the week? I liked. Sorry. Okay, this is me letting somebody else steer this frickin' bullet train. What do y'all like for question of the week?
Was snow
the
days a
Gatsby
question
one?
you asked?
I'll take the prize.
Yeah.
I'll take Etherborn on Switch.
It was from
Remind
like, was it? It was from the Chuck E. Cheese question. Stories came up.
Right.
was like
That
a
is a good
spin-off.
question.
me. Yeah, it was good.
We had a lot of good ones.
Yeah, great gap, great
Gatsby
step.
today.
Yeah, which I did like whatever that came from as well, but I forgot what we were talking about. for that.
I like
Yeah.
Spencer Jensen's about how bad does it suck to talk about a sucky game. I thought that was a good conversation starter. But Chuck E. Cheese is probably a juicier one.
That's what they say about Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah.
Super juicy.
Sarah?
No.
Sarah, you must
Janet's the
choose.
guest here.
Oh, you're right. Janet,
I'll take the Chuck E. Cheese one.
you'll take it or you're going to be happy with it?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick it.
There we go, everybody. Drake Hindhorse, congratulations.
None of this is
you just
really
won
real, so I
question
don't really think
of
too much
the
about
week. No, that's a big deal. All right, now it's time for something that is clearly called the one and only thing as I find the music cue. Get a load of this. All right,
It's
Leo.
scary in real life to see you pretend to. Well, actually, can you hear it?
I can't hear it.
Okay.
You thought I had a different headset system than you.
No, but I mean, you got a whole nother thing going on there.
It is
you
a
got, like,
lot.
a laptop. You have like a sparkling water. Like
That is true. The two keys to success. Leo, what do you got, man?
All my get a load of this ones are in bookmarks on my browser at home, and I forgot to bring one. So give
Okay.
me a minute to look through something else.
Absolutely. Hey, get a load of this, everybody. I was gonna go one way with this, and then I ended up going some way that's a little bit closer. Sakurai, our favorite developer, Smash Brothers, Kirby, all that stuff. He has launched his own YouTube channel, which is amazing. He's very clear in that first video, like, this is not a Nintendo thing. This is me doing my own thing. I'm going to be talking about the keys to great game design so that I can hopefully make every game out there a little bit better. And the production values, it's like the hallmark, I think, of any YouTube channel like this, where it's like production values are very impressive, but it's like, that'll peter off, I'd imagine. I hope it's just more of him giving little 4 to 6 minute tidbits of wisdom. But I love it. It's so awesome. And especially, it's a weird trend, right? Where you see more and more developers, specifically like Japanese game developers, creating their own YouTube channels. And like, I know I talked about Harada's Bar, Sarah's favorite YouTube channel from the creator of Tekken. But it's interesting because so many of the guests that he had on his channel now are making their own YouTube channels. And it's just incredible. Like the Gravity Rush fella, he has his own, with that studio, they have their own YouTube channel, which is really good. You know, we talked about it last week where they had Shuhei Yoshida on an episode, which was amazing. But then also they had Shinji Mikami, the creator of Resident Evil, on there as well. And they were talking about Resident Evil 4, and it was just a fascinating deep dive. But this new Sakurai channel is fantastic. It's everything I want from Sakurai on YouTube, which is not a thing I thought I'd say. But the first lesson that he has is the importance of pausing during big moments, of stopping the gameplay for big moments, where it's like, I don't understand what he's talking about there. Then you watch it and realize, like, oh, that is a very smart little Sakurai touch that other games do, but maybe not enough. So he's just talking about a good example of, like, you know, Captain Falcon doing his punch. It's like, all right, they fly off, but they punch, and then he pauses for extra frames, so it really has an impact. So, like, when you die or when you defeat a boss, even going back to the original Kirby, they'll pause it. And he shows, like, a breakdown of, like, you know, Capcom's 1942. You're the plane flying around, you get hit by a bullet, you explode, you die. And it's like he had no time to, like, absorb that. But if you get hit by a bullet and you kind of do that Mega Man-esque thing of, like, the blah, 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 right? And it kind of pauses, then you can see what's happening a little bit more. So it's just like a cool lesson that I never really thought about before. So I'm very excited about Sakurai's YouTube channel. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. Leo, what do you got, man?
Here's a little article. A research paper found that native-born Texans commit violent crimes at nearly double the rate of immigrants, including undocumented immigrants.
Interesting. What kind of propaganda site you getting this from?
The Cato Institute.
Interesting.
You know, you get in a lot of arguments with racists online, and sometimes it's nice to have a little ammunition. So go ahead and save this article.
That's right. In honor of Texas, you're loading up your own ammo.
Yep.
Nice.
Love it. Do you have one, Janet?
Yeah, mine's themed after the trip. So it's just that Ben had shared about flour being very flammable. I didn't know that.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you can take a history of our flour mills here in Minneapolis, and that was one thing that you learned. It's more flammable than TNT if there's flour in the air, which is a weird detail. I don't understand. If it's more flammable, why don't they just use it? Why don't they put that in bombs?
Because I think it has to be, like, in the air.
Oh.
You can't, like, you couldn't blow up a bag of flour.
Right.
It has to be, like...
You'd have to, like, punch it first and go poof.
Yeah,
and then
you can light it on fire.
Falcon punch it.
I kind of want to try it. I'll see if there's good examples on YouTube. Sarah, do you have one?
Yeah, get a load of this. There might be a Gravity Rush movie. Did
Hell
you see that?
yeah!
PlayStation announced that they're making a Gravity Rush movie, but I don't put much faith into that because it could mean that they started talking about maybe making a Gravity Rush movie. But it's weird that they, like, waited this long to do it. And now the game studio doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, what if people like it?
What do you do? I guess they could re-release those games, kind of Last of Us Part 1 style. Yeah, but apparently it's the director behind Disney Plus's Secret Society of Second-Born Royals, which
What?
I had never heard of. But that's
What in the
apparently
Descendants is this?
It seems a little bit confusing. That was actually going to be
I hope it's not live action. Please.
Of course it's going to be live
Please.
action. Yes.
No.
That'd be really
It's
weird
absolutely
to
going to be live
see.
action. Of course it is.
What kind of budget do you have to like fly, like control gravity? Like this isn't a Marvel budget. Like
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be weird.
well,
yeah, I don't know.
now I'm upset about it.
Let's see.
Don't get a load of that.
I actually take it back.
That was going to be my get a load of this from the community, but let's see. I'll just grab the last one that
Sorry.
posted in Discord. That's fine. You know,
Sorry.
great minds think alike. Leafeon posts that apparently Francis Lawrence from The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, I Am Legend, and Slumberland has joined to direct the live-action film adaptation of BioShock. And the writer of Blade Runner 2049 and Death on the Nile is working on the screenplay. That's like for the Netflix version. So every game that you know and love is being turned
Every
into a film.
IP
For
that
real.
doesn't even stop a game. Every IP that you know and love is getting a movie.
We're here to announce that Trivia Tower, the movie, will be hitting theaters in 2024. Please look forward to it.
In the Tower Heist universe.
It is notable that still Radio Silence on that Metal Gear Solid movie, huh? It's like, Oscar Isaac, we got a director, and still they haven't announced that it's going into production.
It's what's going on with all those movie announcements.
Well, because they're games, they have to get delayed.
True.
they're game-based.
To honor them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's confusing. All right. Hey, that's it for a podcast. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching or listening to this episode. Thank you for making this possible. Janet Garcia, everybody, in the flesh. What are you looking forward to from the rest of the trip?
I am looking forward to the Mall of America because I don't want spoilers on the Mall of America because we're
Please
gonna go.
don't.
Yeah, I would ruin
But
it.
I have
It's
so
a place
much,
for something in your life,
I
but
have
we won't
so
tell you what.
much that I'm curious about for that. So that's gonna be cool. And then obviously Shrek. Because I also am very curious about what that game turns out to be. Which also is funny because like I was mentioning this to my family, which is kind of, it's not hard to explain because it is what it is, but it's like, why? You know, that part's harder.
Right.
It's not hard to explain, but it is hard to understand. And I remember Maggie being like, oh, there's a Shrek 2 game? Like, I hadn't heard of this. And I'm like, well, get ready, you know? So
you're going to hear about it
all
already. You're going to hear about it. So follow us on Twitch, or you can check out that archive on YouTube. Thank you for making this whole thing possible. If we have not made that clear, this is all because of your support over there on Patreon. We look forward to a next big ambitious goal as well. I hope somebody goes back and finds at some point in the Chibi Robo stream where we talked about this. I think like you jumped in the chat, Janet, and said something about somehow the idea started brewing about, wouldn't it be funny to send Janet all the way to Minnesota just to play Shrek 2? And then you all made that possible. So thank you so much. You can unlock a bunch of benefits over there on Patreon. Check it out. You can unlock Party Chat, which is our bonus podcast each and every week. You know, this week we talked about She-Hulk. We talked about the rehearsal finale from Nathan Fielder. Did you watch it and like it, Leo?
I only haven't seen the finale.
Okay, interesting. Bunch of other stuff. And then also heads up that I think we're pretty good to locked in on what the next Deepest Dive is going to be. It is going to be happening the week of September 12th, just so y'all know. And just for a tease, I think it's the oldest game that technically we've ever done for the Deepest Dive.
Cool.
Even like going back to the Game Informer era and stuff like that. So it's going to be an oldie, and it's a genre that I don't think we've ever done a game club on, but it feels like a genre that's like ripe for game club. And it's going to be a little bit timely as well. Those are all my teases.
Stickball.
That's right. Look forward to it, everybody. Appreciate it, and thank you to everybody at that $50 tier, the Game Champion tier. You can choose any game under the sun, whatever you like, and we'll officially declare you the champion of it. For example, Atsigo 12, they chose the Wind Waker, and now we make a bonus piece of content about that, and we're actually kind of sort of making 2 pieces of content about Wind Waker. So look forward to one popping up on Monday, and then the next one, I think the following Friday is when that second Wind Waker piece will be out there. But, anybody have thoughts on that? Okay, cool. I thought I heard a noise. I was just checking. I thought I heard a noise. But thank you to our $50 supporters, the Game Champion tier people. Divorced Cougar, otherwise known as Mike M. They're the Game Champion of Clubhouse Games.
Good
Hell
pick.
yeah. Isn't that a cool pick? People
That
are so
takes me
creative
back.
with this. Sandshrew, another great pick, chooses Lego Island, the champion of Lego Island.
Yeah.
Tanner Hoisington, who we heard from earlier in the show, Danganronpa V3 Killing Harmony. Great pick. Clement Zobel chose Cameo Elements of Power. Hell yeah, the official champion. Jesse Spencer, the champion of Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Nice.
That's going to be a contender for when we do the next like big vote for what we make bonus content about. I feel like
We'll have to finish the game.
We have to finish all the Yakuza games.
Procyon number 6 chose Ghost of Tsushima, which I think is also a contender. People are going to want to vote for all that stuff. But thank you so much, everybody, for supporting us at the Game Champion tier. Pick a game, any game under the sun, and you're officially the champion of it. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching or listening to this episode of the MinnMax Show podcast. Janet, thank you for being here. Yeah. Thanks for being a delight. Do you want to do the sign-off?
No.
But maybe like a little bit. You make it your own. You do just whatever you want.
I hate when people have me make it my own because I'm like, I'd rather just try to replicate it badly.
Okay,
you know?
make it his then.
Yeah, sure. And be good, have fun, let's go, right? Basically.
Huzzah! Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye. Oh, hang on. We're still live.